Hello everyone, this is Fanfic Audiobook. Here you find original fan made audio stories.
Comprehensive comic. Descendants of Lucifer in High School DxD. Part 8. Lavinia had released her magic power too forcefully just now, so she couldn't stop her opponent right now and could only reach out and grab in Augusta's direction. Her hand naturally couldn't reach, and she merely grasped at the air. But no one expected what happened next. Several blade marks appeared out of thin air, crisscrossing through the surrounding space, causing it to crack like a shattered kaleidoscope. Within those twisted, fragmented fissures, the magic circle beneath Augusta's feet was torn to shreds. Lavinia hadn't seen it clearly. But both Valley and Augusta had seen it, the motion of Levi sheathing his sword just now. When did he draw his sword? This thought popped into both their minds simultaneously. Azazel, who had been observing the situation here using the White Dragon Emperor, was shocked by something else. He could actually cut through space. Switch with me, Lavinia. Levi's voice was calm, no different from how he usually spoke, but Lavinia could hear an unmistakable tone of non-negotiability. She subconsciously retracted her Longinus and spell techniques, obediently making room for Levi. Levi walked to the front, staring at Augusta, who was still hiding behind the flame giant. Seeing her stunned expression, his gaze was as cold as an ice princess. I said before, I don't intend to let you go. Didn't you understand? Augusta, do you think that just because your plan failed, you can block us when you want, and leave when you please? When we first arrived, I could still sense the location of the two guys you let escape, but now they are completely gone. However, from the moment I saw you, I never intended to chase after those two, because I need information on Oz. Is there any captive more suitable than you? Before, when Lavinia displayed her power, Augusta hadn't been afraid at all. Because she knew what kind of person Lavinia was. That kind of good person, even if she really wanted to kill her, couldn't inspire fear. But it was different when facing Levi. She didn't even feel a shred of killing intent from him, but the instant that overwhelming malice erupted, it nearly crushed her. Do you think you can stop us? Cold sweat streamed down Augusta's forehead. She stared fixedly at Levi. This guy standing there, compared to Lavinia and Valley behind him, was simply not an existence on the same level. The gap was too huge. Ah! She let out a roar, collapsing to her knees. The magic power within her body surged out crazily as if it were free. Nourished by this magic power, the flame giant's size expanded significantly once more. Without Lavinia's suppression, the terrifying high temperature instantly filled the entire space. Everything around them was melting. The purple flames rose up like the walls of an arena. A set of flame armor appeared on the giant's body. It pulled the cross that had been stuck in the ground and hoisted it onto its shoulder like a greatsword. Balance breaker. This thing has definitely reached the balance breaker level. Azazel's voice suddenly rang out. Levi, be careful. This is purple flame that can burn even gods and demons to ash. No, perhaps that giant itself is a fire god. Azazel knew that Levi had inherited Rizvim's sacred gear nullification ability, but he still couldn't help but warn him. Longinus are completely different from ordinary sacred gears. They all contain famous, fearsome, and malevolent entities. Heavenly dragons, evil gods, god-slaying swords, some even have major gods from mythology who have sealed their own wills inside. None of them are easy to deal with. If you aren't careful, you could be burned to ash. Aside from using your ability on Valley's normal form, you haven't tried it on balance breaker level power, so you'd best not be careless. It wasn't that Azazel thought Levi would lose. He just thought Levi should be a bit more careful. After hearing Azazel's words, Levi looked at the flame giant that was carrying the cross and walking toward him like a wandering knight. He smiled. Don't worry, Azazel. I've said before, what I possess is not the same sacred gear nullification as Rizvim's. The flame giant walked in front of Levi and stopped. What I possess is another, more special, more aggressive, and harder to control power. Levi didn't take the flame giant seriously at all and continued chatting with Azazel. The flame giant seemed completely enraged. It gripped the shorter end of the cross with both hands, looking exactly like an executioner wielding a great blade, aiming the edge at Levi's head, and raised its arms to the highest point. The surrounding air exploded along with it, the purple flames burned even brighter, and the light, like the crazed cheering audience outside an arena, dyed the entire sky a purplish red. Levi kept staring forward. But he wasn't staring at the flame giant, he was staring at Augusta. He had no intention of letting this Witch of Oz, whom he had finally run into, slip away. If he let her run, it would be difficult to pry any useful information out of her again. As for that flame giant holding the cross, which was just about to smash down on him. Azazel, don't try to gauge me based on my strength when I fought Valley. The cross smashed down from high in the air like a falling meteorite, rushing straight toward Levi's head. Not until the thing was about to smash onto his head did Levi slowly raise his right hand. When brothers fight, no matter how much you don't intend to hold back, no matter how unwilling you are to underestimate the other party, there are some skills you just can't use on your own people. As soon as he finished speaking, his right hand collided with the massive cross. Don't. Azazel thought that what Levi was doing was incredibly stupid. But the moment the word escaped his lips, what happened next choked the rest of his words back in his throat. Crack. There seemed to be a faint sound. In that instant, no one understood what had happened. The arena made of purple flames, the majestic fire god, the high-raised execution platform, the crazed cheering flames, the high temperature, the heatwaves, all of it. It all seemed fake. It all seemed like a dream. It was gone. By the time they regained their senses, everything was gone. It was as if an illusion had been dispelled, a trick had been exposed, or someone had been woken from a dream. Right after that, crack, that seemed like a hallucination. Augusta's sacred gear, the execution platform of the purple flame priest, had just vanished like that. Phew. Valley, Lavinia, and Azazel were all unable to understand what had just happened, but the noise coming from Augusta's direction yanked them back from this incredibly unreal, absurd scene. You. Blood seeped continuously from the corners of her mouth, eyes, nostrils, and ears, and her hair fell loose, withered and yellow like a handful of hay. The wretched Augusta, pointing at Levi with trembling fingers, knelt on the ground and used the last of her strength to roar at the slowly approaching Levi. What on earth did you do to me? Augusta was completely stunned. My sacred gear, where is my Longinus? Levi looked at her lost and soul-broken appearance, his expression showing no fluctuation at all. He didn't stop walking, his tone as casual as if he were talking about what to have for dinner. It shattered. Fearing this old witch wouldn't understand, he added another sentence. To be precise, it was erased. Whether it was the sacred gear itself, or the will and soul sealed within it. All of it had completely vanished in that crack sound from just now. From this moment on, this sacred gear, which was rated as one of the 13 Longinus by the previous generation, had permanently become 12. Levi had originally thought about extracting this thing and giving it to Sakura to use. But when he saw this old witch, whose strength was passable, almost drain herself dry after activating her balance breaker, he completely abandoned that idea. No wonder this old hag still wanted another Longinus. This thing consumed so much that a normal person simply couldn't handle it. Moreover, the purple flames didn't distinguish between friend and foe, so it was completely unsuitable for use by his own team. So, fantasy break, you can call it that. Rizvim's sacred gear nullification is just a turtle shell specifically for defending against sacred gears. And this move of mine is the ultimate spear capable of piercing and erasing all miracles and fantasies. While speaking, Levi had already walked up to Augusta. He grabbed her hair with one hand and lifted her up directly. Don't think about trying to die just like that. I'm counting on you for all the information regarding Oz, which fantasy break, tisk, the power this kid has mastered is truly incredible. Azazel leaned back in his chair, watching this scene through the perspective of the White Dragon Emperor, and couldn't help but exclaim. These days, young people are becoming more and more absurd. He was actually quite worried at the beginning. Now it seems he had no need to worry about this at all. Hey, no wonder Searsex took the initiative to propose the tripartite peace talks. So it turns out the devils have produced a junior of this caliber. Then of course you would want peace. In peaceful times, what matters is development. If there were no threats from the outside, and the devils were allowed to develop like this, by the time Levi became the demon king Lucifer, the status of the fallen angels and angels would likely suffer a huge impact. However, it doesn't matter, though. Azazel was never that kind of ambitious person. He had even said that as long as we have these people, the fallen angels are enough. He hated war. He just wanted to live a stable life, research the things he liked, and incidentally manage the affairs of Grigori, that's all. Although Azazel was a fallen angel, after witnessing Levi's strength, he didn't harbor any devious thoughts at all. What he was pondering now, instead, was the movement on the angel's side. With Levi overseeing the devil faction, the peace treaty would only benefit them, they certainly wouldn't tear it up. Even the most difficult to deal with old Satan faction had quieted down because Levi was the eldest son of the Lucifer clan. The devils are the side that wants peace the most. I can keep the fallen angels in check. As for the angels, before the peace agreement is signed, it's best not to let Michael know about Levi. Azazel made up his mind and began to take the initiative to cover for Levi. What he wanted was peace. If Levi's existence could exchange for a ceasefire, he had absolutely no objection. Those who break the peace are his enemies. Someone like Levi is, of course, one of his own. Michael, that guy Azazel seems to be hiding something. What Azazel didn't know was that as soon as he made a move, the heavenly realm immediately detected it. Normally, it wouldn't have been discovered. But recently, the heavenly realm had been keeping an eye on movements in this area, and as soon as he made a move, Michael received the news. I understand, Gabriel. Michael looked at the intelligence in his hand, his brow slowly furrowing. He and Azazel were old acquaintances. Before Azazel had fallen, they were angels of the same generation, practically classmates. So he knew Azazel's temper like the back of his hand. Could it be that the Lord who has yet to awaken is over on the side of the fallen angels? Michael had this thought, but quickly shook his head. He still hadn't fully comprehended God's last words to this day. So regarding this intelligence, he decided to turn a blind eye. God said that he would eventually return. Then, it is best not to cause any unnecessary trouble now, since the devils have proposed a three-party peace treaty. Let's sign this agreement first, and then slowly look for that Lord. The fallen angels and the angels each had their own plans. On Levi's side, he grabbed Augusta, used Yamato to cut open a spatial rift, threw her into the imaginary space, and tossed her over to Tiamat. First, let's see what the intelligence from Oz is really about. After dealing with the matters here, Levi took the still-dazed Lavinia and Valley and headed toward the top floor of the building. His observation hockey sensed it clearly. Ikus Tobio and the others were there fighting Himahima Todu. Graphia had already wiped out the nest of the Void Cicada organization, the remaining small fry were all trash thrown out by the five great families. Although some of these people had underhanded methods, with Graphia and Ryugi Shiki in charge, they couldn't stir up any trouble at all. Only Himahima Todu remained, and because Levi had specifically designated him to be dealt with by Ikus Tobio, no one else had intervened. Otherwise, with Graphia's methods, that guy who excelled at using magical tools would have been tied up like a dumpling long ago. However, Ikus Tobio was certainly not having an easy time right now. He stood before Himahima Todu, blood seeping from several wounds on his body, and the black blade by his feet was chipped in several places. In contrast, Himahima Todu had sustained no real damage, save for slightly torn clothes and a red mark scratched across his chest. The difference in physical strength alone was deadly enough. Iku's Tobio's breathing was as heavy as a bellows, while the person opposite him was still breathing quite steadily. From any angle, Iku's Tobio had no chance of winning. But in his mind, the words Levi said before leaving kept echoing. Tobio, I have only one request. In this battle, you must maintain the initiative from start to finish. Thinking of this, Iku's Tobio saw Himahima Todu about to move, so he instead rushed forward a step ahead. The black scythe in his hand was raised high, and the blade by his feet flew out along with him. Clang! The weapons collided, sparks flying everywhere. But Iku's Tobio's scythe couldn't cut through Himahima Todu's specially made staff at all. Coupled with the gap in experience and technique, his wide, sweeping attacks looked like the death throes of a defeated dog. Himahima Todu steadily blocked every strike, his breathing not even disturbed. 1 strike. 2 strikes. 3 strikes. Every time, he was blocked. Logically speaking, Iku's Tobio should have fallen long ago. But he kept mulling over that sentence from Levi in his mind. The strength in his hands grew heavier, and the speed of his blade swings became faster and faster. He didn't want to disappoint Levi. Originally, Levi had told him to just kill Himahima Todu, but he hadn't been able to bring himself to do it. Levi had taken a step back and handed the final choice to him. Then, at the very least, he had to fulfill that one request. He absolutely could not fail to live up to Levi's expectations. A Longinus, in the end, is an extension of emotions. Iku's Tobio clung tightly to this thought, the black shadow beneath his feet spread rapidly, wrapping around his calves, climbing up his waist, and finally engulfing him completely. That canine, which had previously looked quite small, had now expanded into a massive beast. The sky darkened. Clouds spread overhead, and moonlight spilled down, illuminating the surrounding scene. This was not because his grandmother's seal had been broken, causing a sudden explosion of power. Nor was it due to any accidental situation causing his power to spiral out of control. It was only because of an obsession. Or rather, just because of Tobio himself. In short, he had activated his balance breaker himself. Balance breaker. Night Sky's black blade dog god. The wooden box held in Himahima Todu's arms suddenly lit up at this moment. He had found this item at the home of Tobio's childhood sweetheart. It was a memento left behind by Tobio's grandmother, or rather, Himahima Juba. The wooden box opened, the crystal inside floated up slowly, and immediately after, a familiar voice drifted out. Iku's Tobio, having just entered his balance breaker state, was stunned. He was all too familiar with this voice. It was his grandmother's voice. I want to make it clear to those who approach this child with malicious intent. I raised him to be more considerate of others than anyone else. Because he was born with that forbidden means known as a false god. These words left behind by Himahima Juba not only stunned Himahima Todu but also shocked Graphia. According to Himahima Juba's words, could Iku's Tobio actually use the balance breaker of a Longinus from birth? While they were shocked, the voice continued. Tobio, I'm sorry. You must be very sad, right? Very scared, right? Forgive grandmother for leaving before I could tell you the truth. But, Tobio, it's all right now. You don't need to be afraid anymore, you don't need to cry anymore. Sing it. Although you've forgotten, you should be able to remember it now. So, sing that forbidden song of the Blade Dog. At this moment, Iku's Tobio finally remembered. When he was very young, his grandmother had taken him to a shrine and said these words to him. Listen well, Tobio. Everything his grandmother had said, he now remembered it all. She said that if he ever truly reached a dead end, there was an incantation that could save his life. But it could only be used at the very last moment. If used, everything would be gone. If used, he would no longer be human. But now, it wasn't needed. Grandmother, it wasn't needed anymore. Tobio hadn't even sung the song of the Blade Dog, yet he had stepped into the balance breaker on his own. He had reclaimed the power that had belonged to him since birth. His body, standing where it was engulfed by the black shadow, his face elongated and distorted, and he transformed into a pitch-black werewolf, his eyes blood-red. The blade dog by his feet also lifted its head from its curled-up position. Two pairs of blood-red eyes stared fixedly at Himahima Todu. Levi, Valley, and Lavinia had also arrived by this time. So this is the balance breaker of the blade dog. Valley looked at Iku's Tobio's appearance, a smile full of fighting spirit appearing on his face. Levi used the voice of all things to probe Tobio's state, then shouted out loud. If you want to do it, isn't it possible? Tobio, you haven't gone crazy even after entering the balance breaker, you aren't just slashing around blindly. Do you remember what I said at the beginning? You are Iku's Tobio, the black blade dog god is just your Longinus, your power, the one holding the blade is you yourself. Now, I have handed the choice to you, how you want to live from now on, you choose for yourself. So, you decide for yourself. Yeah. Levi heard that voice. Iku's Tobio's blood-red eyes locked onto Himahima Todu. He, or rather it, raised the scythe in his hand high. The blade dog by his feet also lowered its head and pulled a great sword out from the shadows. It was as if he was saying goodbye to his past self. The scythe swung down, and the blade dog charged out. It was as if he was going to sever everything from the past. Slash! All those things that could never be cut were severed. His weapon, along with Himahima Todu himself, were all split in two by Iku's Tobio. He and the blade dog stood in a pool of blood, looking down at the corpse at their feet. His face showed no expression, but his heart was far less calm than it appeared. More than 10 minutes later, he exited the balance breaker state. Levi could hear his heart slowly calming down. Iku's Tobio walked up to Levi, still with his old demeanor, still with that same tone, and spoke slowly. The Void Cicada matter is a closed chapter. As agreed back then, my life is yours from now on, Mr. Levi. His tone was even colder than before, as if it had lost a few degrees of warmth. Levi, however, smiled. Fine, Tobio, welcome to my team officially. The Void Cicada incident came to an end with the death of Himahima Todu. The fallen angels helped treat the wounds of the children who had been transformed into void cicadas, then wiped their memories and quietly returned them to their original circles of life. With everything taken care of, this matter was quietly suppressed. But some people could not go back. Like those Longinus wielders of the Four Perils. Like Iku's Tobio, who held the black blade dog god. He was standing at the mouth of the alley right now, under a street lamp, looking at the house opposite that was glowing with warm light. That was the home of his childhood sweetheart. Her family had all returned. Even the lion that had been brought out from Oz inside her, which had long since lost its nerve, had been extracted by Levi using Yamato and sent to Lucifer for study. So everything on her end had returned to normal. Only, in her world, there was no longer any shadow of him. Levi stood in the shadows, watching Tobio's appearance, and sighed. Ahem, it's not like I'm forbidding you from having contact with people. If you really want me to protect a few people for you, it's not a difficult task for me. Tobio shook his head upon hearing this. No need, Mr. Levi. Just let them live their lives peacefully. I can't go back. And I don't want her to see anything scary again. Not even once, I don't want any accidents. After saying this, he turned away from under the light, slipped into the shadows beside Levi, and didn't even look back. I have severed ties with the past. From now on, I want to change how I live. So. Tobio stopped, turned his head, and glanced at Levi. I'll be in your care from now on, Mr. Levi. Seeing this attitude, Levi didn't try to persuade him further and straightened up from leaning against the wall. Let's go, I'll take you to hand over to the person in charge. As for today, do you want to have a drink? No, I'm not at the age to drink yet. Tisk, how boring. Tobio followed beside Levi, a slightly shy smile on his face, and the two stepped into the darkness step by step. They grew further and further away from the warm light at the mouth of the alley. Once Levi handed Tobio over to the contact person, he stopped worrying about this side for the time being. Levi pushed open the door to his home, and the aroma of food wafted over directly. He was too familiar with this scent, it must have been Ryugi Shiki cooking again. Come to think of it, although there was a group of people gathered at Lucifer's castle, every time he returned to this small house, he always felt his whole body relax quite a bit. Was it because of Shiki's cooking skills? He couldn't quite say. But just as he stepped into the entryway, Levi felt something was a bit off. Ryugi Shiki was not there. He reconsidered, he had originally told her to leave first, but she had gone back with Grafia. At this moment, she was likely meeting with Irisville to go over something. Once she departed with her familiars on the Ark, Ryugi Shiki remaining here, able to leverage the power of Lucifer and the support of the underworld, was not a bad thing. Besides, even if she had actually arrived home early, given the chaos today, she would probably only be eating ice cream with mineral water for dinner. Levi walked toward the kitchen while pondering this. When he peeked inside, he froze. Standing in front of the stove was not Ryugi Shiki, but Ophis. The dragon god was wearing a white apron, and a triangular headscarf was tied around her head, making it look like a ghost decoration. She still had that expressionless face, but a smudge of flour on her cheek made her beautiful face look even cuter, the very image of an airheaded, emotionless girl. Actually, that was pretty much accurate. Ophis, you can cook. This was beyond Levi's scope of knowledge. Ophis took the pot off the stove, placed it on the table, and replied while dishing out the food. I watched Shiki do it a while ago. She spoke simply, but Levi vaguely understood. You mean, you watched Shiki cook, and then you learned how to do it? Ophis set down the pot, sat opposite Levi, and blinked at him. I basically replicated the steps, so, are you happy? I'm quite happy. Levi had always had poor resistance when it came to Ophis. Truth be told, Ryugi Shiki's cooking was truly amazing. But seeing Ophis cook for him warmed his heart. It was just, the taste was not great. The meal Ophis served smelled quite fragrant, and the presentation was passable. But the dragon god must have used some kind of dark magic, because there was always something not quite right about the taste of the food she made. It wasn't exactly bad, but it wasn't particularly good either. It just had an indescribable awkwardness to it. Levi silently made excuses for Ophis in his heart. Perhaps dragons and humans had different taste buds. Fortunately, Ophis's cooking hadn't reached the point of being inedible, and Levi finished everything on the table. Ophis kept staring at him while he ate, her eyes blinking. After Levi finished eating and began cleaning up the dishes and wiping the stove, she suddenly felt that the empty space in her chest didn't seem so empty anymore. As expected, learning to live with Shiki hadn't been a mistake. She felt very secure when lying in his arms. She also felt secure watching him finish the food she had made. It was precisely because of this sense of stability that Ophis realized, she hadn't thought about the dimensional gap for quite a while now. Even if she left that eternal void, as long as she stayed by Levi's side, she could find the kind of silence she desired. Then, is Levi the silence I want? When Levi finished cleaning the kitchen and returned, he found Ophis sitting there in a daze, as if pondering some question. Just then, a communication came from Grafia. Lord Levi, Miss Ryugi Shiki is with me now. I am going over some arrangements for after the departure with Irisville. She will stay in the Lucifer territory tonight. Do you have any other orders, my lord? Hearing that Ryugi Shiki and Grafia would not be returning tonight, Levi nodded. What about that puppeteer? I have something to ask her later. Has she left the Lucifer territory? You mean Miss Aozuki Tuko? She already left the underworld after receiving her payment. However, it seems she returned to her own office. If you wish to find her, my lord, you could go there and see. All right, I understand. Levi finished handling the matter and hung up the communication. Just as he turned his head, he discovered that Ophis had already moved in front of him and buried herself in his arms. Levi was already somewhat accustomed to her sudden pouncing. He suppressed the slight flutter in his heart and asked her softly, "What's wrong, Ophis?" Let me feel. Seeing Ophis acting like a spoiled child, Levi reached out and gently wrapped his arms around her, his courage growing a bit, and he took the opportunity to stroke her head. The dragon god didn't mind his actions and just quietly felt it. Body temperature. Quiet. Peace of mind. Ophis recited silently in her heart and slowly opened her eyes. Levi froze. He looked down at Ophis in his arms. Those golden eyes were looking at him earnestly, not as if she were joking. What you said just now. I don't want to go back to the silence. Ophis buried her face in his chest, her voice muffled. You just stay by my side, and I don't want to worry about Great Red anymore. Levi's heart skipped a beat. He had never had any resistance to this little girl, and now, hearing her say this, it was as if a fire had been ignited within him. The previous fears and evasions had long since been crushed by Ophis herself. Back then, she had forced him to the edge of a cliff and pushed him off. Ever since then, when facing her, all that remained was excitement. Levi, hold me. This sentence completely snapped the last string in his mind. This night was destined to be long. For everyone, it was very long. The next morning, sunlight spilled in through the gaps in the curtains, scattering halos of light across the entire room. Levi sat against the headboard, holding Ophis in his arms, and gently stroked her head. Seeing her eyes closed, as if she were still asleep, he couldn't help but smile. He vaguely felt that starting from yesterday, his life would be completely different. As for what it would become, he couldn't say. Regardless, it felt pretty great. Just as he was still ruminating, the communicator suddenly vibrated. Grandfather. Something up. It was Rizvam calling. Previously, it was always Levi who contacted him. The number of times this old man had initiated contact could be counted on two hands. But now, the tone Levi used when speaking to him had long since lost the restraint of the early days. The only thing he was worried about now was this madman going crazy before he died and summoning the Beast Emperor. As for the man himself. Hey, a joke. Levi, I heard you've been up to quite a lot in the Far East. It seems I didn't misjudge you. You are completely different from that useless father of yours. Can't help it, grandfather. You only care about useful tools. If I lost my utility, you would throw me away immediately. So, rather than spouting those useless compliments, let's be direct. Do you still need me to continue creating value for you? Speaking of this, Levi smiled, a very genuine smile. I've already fallen into your hands, there's no escaping now. Levi spread his hands, his tone carrying a bit of devil-may-care ease. Since that's the case, might as well let me do more valuable things. That way, I can use these contributions to trade for a better life. Devils, after all, are just like this. After hearing this, Rizvam was stunned for a moment, then burst into loud laughter. Well said. You are much smarter than that useless father and brother of yours. As the laughter ceased, his tone turned abruptly cold. So, Levi, you've made connections with the yokai in the Far East, you should have some say there by now. I need you to help me find something. I'll do my best. Very good. You should know the infinite dragon god, Ophis, right? Levi looked down at the person in his arms. Ophis was already awake, her little face upturned, staring at him. He freed one hand, made a shish gesture to her, and while stroking her long, pitch black hair, he replied. Of course. The world's strongest being, who doesn't know her? That's fine then. I want you to mobilize your connections with the yokai to find Ophis. She was staying with me, but then she disappeared. Some people said they saw her in the Far East. Right now, she appears as a little girl with black hair, just remember that characteristic. As for the rest, when you see her with your own eyes, you will naturally recognize her. The same goes for those yokai. After listening, Levi suddenly smiled. He stroked the dragon god's head like he was petting a cat, his tone incredibly relaxed. Don't worry, leave it to me. I'll leave it to you. The communication on the other end was cut off. Levi looked down at Ophis in his arms, the smile on his face carrying a hint of amusement. Did you hear that? They're looking for you. Do you want me to go back? How could I? Levi pressed his hand against her head, lowered his own head, and gently rested his forehead against hers. Their eyes met directly. You are mine now. Ophis's fair little face revealed a rare trace of pink. But she didn't shy away. She looked straight at Levi and said, Levi is mine. Hearing this, Levi smiled again. She leaned forward, and he casually cast another barrier. As for the matter on Rizebim's side, let it be whatever it will be. Himehima Suzaku, I've told you before about the 5 great families. But you also know, although I am a devil, I am not the unreasonable kind of devil. Among the 5 great families, I think the Wanglong side can still be reasoned with. As for the other families led by the Himehima family, the current heads are either your elders or the elders of your companions. I gave you time so that you could prepare in advance. Levi, dressed in pajamas, lounged on the sofa, his eyes glancing sideways at Himehima Suzaku, who was sitting opposite him. I told you back then to have those old geezers step down early, or just prepare funerals for them directly. His tone was light and airy. You don't really think I, a devil, would be soft-hearted, do you? Now that you've come to find me, are you planning to have me order wreaths for all 4 of those families? Himehima Suzaku's body tensed slightly for a moment. But thinking of Aunt Shuri and little Zunai, her eyes slowly darkened. She hadn't accomplished what she had promised last time. In order to let Aunt Shuri be laid to rest, she, as the quasi-head of the family, had stubbornly knelt in front of the current head's door for 3 days and 2 nights. The other party finally relented. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that the family's set of rules was simply unbelievably cold-blooded. Therefore, she took a deep breath, and the determination in her heart became even more resolute. Domon, Shinra, and Kushihashi, the heads of those 3 families have all agreed to step down when the time comes. Himehima Suzaku's tone was steady. As for the remaining one, the head of the Himehima clan. Speaking of this, her expression suddenly went still. It was a calmness so still it made one's back feel cold. She looked directly at Levi with this gaze. I have prepared the coffin for him. Levi froze. Immediately after, PFFT. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. He couldn't hold back his first laugh, and soon he couldn't stop laughing. He slapped the coffee table twice with one hand, his eyes curving as he laughed. Interesting, really interesting. You humans are indeed the most fun. He felt this woman was quite crazy, but he also labeled her an outlier. Since you've made such a resolution, then just wait. Levi stopped laughing, his voice steadying. It won't be long before I finish handling everything here. After finishing, he saw Himehima Suzaku stand up to leave, so he called out to her. By the way, help me pass a message to the current Himehima clan head. Himehima Suzaku paused. Levi's next sentence made her turn around abruptly, her eyes widening. Just tell him, among those from the Himehima clan who have strayed outside, one has awakened a Longinus, the Black Blade Dog God. And by the way, tell him that the aim no Ohabari is sealed within that Black Blade Dog God. Upon hearing this, Himehima Suzaku immediately understood. The aim no Ohabari was the god-slaying sword that severed the fire god Kagutsuchi. And the Himehima clan were a Shinto family, the most repulsed by heretics like artifacts and angels. Yet, the one they worshipped was the lineage of the fire god Kagutsuchi. The Himahima family had always been annoyed by those chaotic individuals, and they could not tolerate the Black Blade Dog God at all. It wasn't just ordinary annoyance, it was an evil entity that had to be found and dragged back to the main shrine to be purified. I understand. Himahima Suzaku didn't know what Levi was planning, but for now, she could only nod and agree. Before leaving, Levi added with a smile, "Oh right, I've had contact with the Black Blade Dog God. The current host of this Longinus is a little girl with black hair, keep that in mind." Underworld, Seatree territory. Sarah Fall's mood was very subtle. Searsex had come over early in the morning and told her and her father something with a regretful look, which had kept her in a bad mood all day. Unfortunately, Levi might disappear for several years. I'm afraid the wedding date for him and Sarah Fall won't be met. That was the news Searsex brought. At first, Sarah Fall thought she would be happy hearing this, but after hearing it, she felt quite uncomfortable instead. That's right. She had thought of many ways herself, trying to figure out how to not fulfill the engagement with that rogue. But she hadn't expected the other party to pull a move like this. Running away directly. If he was going to run, he could run, but he didn't take her with him and slipped away on his own. This made Sarah Fall feel that not getting married seemed okay, yet she also felt slighted, and was furious. Carrying this contradictory and complex mood, she had been holed up in her room since morning, no one knew what she was thinking. Knock, knock, knock. A knock sounded, and the Seatree clan head pushed the door open and entered. Sarah Fall, don't be sad. I asked Searsex again, and he said Levi hasn't left yet. If it really comes to it, you two can get married now. Huh. Sarah Fall's first reaction was whether her old man had senile dementia. Did he think she was worried about not being able to get married? I, actually might be a little bit. She realized she couldn't come up with a retort, which made her even angrier. But it wouldn't be appropriate to vent this anger on her father. So this debt still had to be settled with the culprit. Stop meddling. Sarah Fall made a face at her father, directly channeled her magic power, and flew out the window. The Seatree clan head looked at the direction his daughter flew off in and pushed up his glasses. That seems to be the gate from the underworld to the human world. Levi scanned the surroundings, raised his glasses, and a flash of light suddenly crossed his eyes. Oh. Is Sarah Fall planning to get things done before the wedding? Tisk tisk. Young people these days are much bolder than we were back then. But he didn't say much else, feeling relieved in his heart. Anyway, if Sarah Fall can be married off, that's a good thing. He immediately gave orders regarding the wedding. Accelerate the wedding preparations, no need to save on manpower. Yes, Duke. On the other side, Levi had no idea that Sarah Fall was preparing to come settle scores with him. He just felt his plan was about to start, so he greeted Searsex in advance. While Himahima Suzaku went to handle the affairs of the 5 great families, he wanted to take this time to cuddle with Ophis and enjoy some rare peace. But he didn't expect that, just like when Himahima Suzaku's sudden visit interrupted him last time. This time, just after he sent Ryugi Shiki off to help Himahima Suzaku, thinking he finally had no one to disturb him, Aozuki Tuko showed up at his door again. Speak. What is it? Levi was wearing pajamas, and his expression clearly didn't look good. Aozuki Tuko couldn't figure out where she had offended him either, she only felt that the way he was staring at her was unkind. But she really had no choice. If the matter hadn't been so urgent, and coupled with the fact that she had previously accepted a commission from Levi, she wouldn't have had time to prepare, and she wouldn't have come to beg this devil for help. Urged by Levi to speak, she just said it directly. I have a bit of trouble here, my sister is coming. I need you to help me intervene, stop her, and make it so she can't find me. Levi paused for a moment, and quickly understood. You're talking about that magician. His impression of Aozuki Aoko was actually just 2 points. First, Mushroom had once said in front of everyone that Aoko was his wife, and he didn't allow her to get too close to other men. Yeah, that was about the meaning. Second, it was the issue of Aozuki Aoko's identity as a magician. Previously, because Aozuki Tuko was the fourth magician and had mastered the so-called fifth magic, it sparked a bunch of debates among readers. It was later confirmed by the big shots that it was indeed the fifth magic. As for what the fifth magic could actually do, hard to say. The things displayed by the fifth magic were basically linked to time, but whether it was truly a time-based ability, no one could say for sure. It's estimated that even Aozuki Aoko herself might not be able to explain it clearly. It was the same as Levi's feeling about the third magic. Everything he felt in the root was attributed to the third magic. Not just materialization of the soul, infinite magic power, or immortality, those were just a part of the third magic. Just after Aozuki Tuko finished that sentence, Levi stared at her for a few seconds. You want me to summarize what the third magic specifically is? He laughed. I can't say. Why? Because the languages in this world simply cannot describe that kind of thing. Words can't write it out, and words can't hit the mark. That's just how it is. This is the kind of stuff those magicians have mastered. It's completely different from the magic of devils or things created by other magicians. If you insist on finding a word to contain it, you can only call it magic. Right. Aozuki Tuko nodded and continued along with his words. Because of some things, I am currently being hunted by her. But I'm not prepared to deal with her methods, so I want to ask you for protection for a while. Levi became interested upon hearing this. What did you do? I kidnapped her housemate, Kwanji Alice. Yes. Tuko was a bit surprised that Levi knew about Kwanji Alice, but she still admitted it, not intending to hide it. Then you kidnapped Kwanji Alice. Never mind, if it's inconvenient to say, no need to answer. Tuko glanced at him strangely when she heard this and sighed. Don't think the wrong way. I need Kwanji Alice to help me complete a piece of research, but she won't cooperate, so I had to resort to this strategy. I see. Levi leaned back in his chair and tapped the desktop with his fingers. If this technology is interesting enough that even you need to ask for help, then I'll help you, as payment. Of course, if it's not very interesting, I'll take a look first, then decide whether to team up with Aozuki Aoko to tear your stuff apart. He still had a smile on his face. He could lie, but he never really hid things, and it was the same now. Tuko seemed to have expected him to say this, sighed again, and revealed her trump card. A type of doll magic. But it's not about making identical replicas, but creating dolls that truly have life. Levi narrowed his eyes after hearing this. Creating dolls with life. If someone else said this, he probably wouldn't believe it. But with Aozuki Tuko, it might actually work. At that time, the check-in reward from Alice's side would have a chance. Besides, if this technology is acquired, it might come in handy in the future. As for stopping Aozuki Aoko, a piece of cake. While thinking, Graphia handed over the intelligence. Lord Levi, the information you requested. Aozuki Tuko arrived in this city with Kwanji Alice at the hideout prepared for them by Tasaka. Levi sat in the chair, looking at the intelligence in his hand. Aozuki Aoko couldn't rush over yet. The current priority was to resolve the affairs of the 5 great families first. Yo, Himahima Suzaku is indeed obedient. She started handling things as soon as she went back. The intelligence was written clearly. The faction of the 5 great families led by the Himahima clan was now casting a net throughout the entire Far East region, searching the world for a black-haired girl of the Himahima clan. Levi stared at that line of text for 2 seconds, then casually crossed out the 3 words, Himahima clan. Yukari. Yakumo Yukari drilled out from a gap, her fan fluttering. How are things going with the yokai? She covered half of her face with her fan, her eyes narrowed like a fox. We've handled most of the yokai, There are still a few disobedient ones, and we are planning to deal with them slowly. Stop dealing with them for now. Levi handed the modified intelligence over. Yakumo Yukari was stunned, took the paper, and scanned it. The intelligence says the Himahima clan is looking for a black-haired girl. She noticed that Levi had crossed out Himahima clan, so she didn't read that part. Levi grinned. He deliberately elongated his tone, mimicking someone's speech sarcastically. Lord Rizvam said that the infinite dragon god office is in the Far East, and she is a black-haired girl. His Himahima clan has great influence, searching for people for Lord Rizvam. How dare they? Yakumo Yukari understood in a second. Are you planning to use Lord Rizvim's banner to call all those yokai over, and then let them slaughter the 5 great families? Something like that. But one thing is still missing. Levi stood up. I found some interesting stuff in the brain of that Oz witch before, I'll take you to get it in a while. Once we have it in hand, you can go gather those yokai. He paused and added, remember, it must be in the name of Rizvam. I understand. Framing and shifting blame were things she, Yakumo Yukari, was well versed in. Levi looked at Graphia again. She nodded in response. Among the 6 houses of Lucifer, there are also those who are loyal to Rizvam and refuse to submit to you. Call them all. Yes. Yakumo Yukari thought for a moment and asked, Lord Levi, if you do this, what if Rizvam suspects you? Levi laughed. If he suspects it, does that mean the blame isn't his? Yakumo Yukari fell into deep thought again. Levi's mouth curved up. Yukari, we have to leave for a while, at least for a few years. Don't look at it as a short time. When we come back, I won't be surprised no matter what the world has become. So let's take this opportunity to let the whole world focus on Rizvam for these few years. Only then can that lunatic's path be truly blocked. Those obstacles on our own side will also be cleared at once this time. As for when we come back, Levi's smile deepened. I'll have plenty of time to play with him properly then. Congo, I dug this thing out of that old witch's brain. It's an interesting piece of technology. She still has things hidden deep in her mind that need to be excavated slowly, but some of these gadgets are usable now. Levi handed the sphere in his hand to Yakumo Yukari. It was something created by the demons of the Lucifer territory. As soon as Yakumo Yukari took it, she felt a surge of yokai power pouring out from the sphere. This aura, is this thing a yokai? Seeing her surprised expression, Levi laughed. Correct. It's an artificial yokai that originally only existed in fantasy, its use is simple. Whether a yokai is injured or overexerted, as long as it's bathed in the light of this thing, it can recover quickly. Injuries, stamina, yokai power, it handles them all. There are quite a few yokai dissatisfied with the 5 great families. They haven't made a move yet because, ultimately, they aren't confident. Now that you have this, Yakumo Yukari, I'll leave the rest to you. No problem, right? Yakumo Yukari smiled, a very relaxed smile. She was one of the key figures of the First Lunar War. You can rest assured and leave it to me Tilda. Watching her turn and leave with Congo, Levi shook his head and laughed as well. He walked toward the research lab of Aozuki Tuko and Kwanji Alice. He had mastered the 3rd magic and had read the knowledge in the Key of Solomon, so he understood a bit about puppet manipulation. He wanted to see the specific plans of those 2 and see if there was anywhere he could lend a hand. Pushing the door open, he froze. Aozuki Tuko was sitting in a chair, legs crossed, reading a book. Kwanji Alice was tied up tightly, and the other end of the rope was held in Aozuki Tuko's hand. Am I interrupting you too? No. Kwanji Alice didn't usually talk much, but she spoke up immediately at this moment. After saying that, she stared at Aozuki Tuko with cold eyes. Aozuki Tuko didn't take it to heart at all. She casually patted the head of the golden wolf beside her, the one that should have run off with the male protagonist in a certain story, and then closed the book in her hand, nodding at Levi. Levi understood the moment he saw it. Since the Golden Wolf was still with Aozuki Tuko, the Mahoutsukai no Yuru in this world line was likely not the same as the original plot. He walked in front of Aozuki Tuko and glanced at the still bound Quanji Alice. Aren't you going to untie her? She's very troublesome. I don't intend to let go until she agrees to help. After Aozuki Tuko finished speaking, her gaze landed on Levi. You came to find us, is something the matter? Levi knew that Aozuki Tuko's understanding of him was limited to his identity as a demon, and she knew nothing else. He smiled slowly. I came to lend a hand. Aozuki Tuko actually wasn't very familiar with Levi. Her impression of Levi before was just a few points. First, he was very strong. Second, he was a member of the Lucifer clan and was considered a figure in the demon circle. But today, she learned one more thing. I didn't expect you to actually be a magician of the third magic. Magician. These three words were something Aozuki Tuko had pursued for most of her life. In her not so long life, more than half of it had been spent revolving around the word magician. But what was the result? What she desperately wanted, she could never get. Instead, it was her younger sister who easily inherited the fifth magic. The magecraft she had studied for so many years seemed so insignificant in front of the fifth magic her sister inherited. Was she jealous? Maybe she had been in the past. But now, Aozuki Tuko had let go of quite a bit. She was still studying magecraft, but she was no longer hung up on the matter of being a magician. But some things, since they were right in front of her, she couldn't pretend not to see them. I know that demons like you live for a very long time and might not need any heirs or successors at all. Aozuki Tuko's gaze fell on Levi, her expression too serious to be joking. But since I've run into it, I still want to ask. Levi, have you ever thought about the matter of magical succession? Hearing this, Levi put down the technical data in his hand and looked at Aozuki Tuko. Do you mean for me to consider you? Why couldn't it be me? Aozuki Tuko asked back with justification. Levi thought about it and felt that what she said wasn't unreasonable. If he really wanted to pass on the third magic, Aozuki Tuko, as a crown rank magus, was indeed a good choice. But, I advise you to give up on that idea. Levi's tone was very flat. As for a successor, of course I've thought about it. My choice is, I won't look for one. Aozuki Tuko froze in place, but Levi smiled at her, that smile carrying an indescribable confidence. Why would I have to find a successor? I'm still alive, and I am the magician of the third magic. Isn't that enough? Aozuki Tuko had originally wanted to say a few words, but the moment she met Levi's eyes, incredibly confident, yet not to the point of arrogance, the words she was about to say were swallowed back. She couldn't be bothered to argue about the third magic anymore. Fine, I've read your proposal, it does have experimental value. If you need any materials, go ask Graphia. Once the technology is complete, remember to leave me a copy as payment. You want to use this technology too? Aozuki Tuko was quite puzzled. A guy like Levi, who was both a magician and a top-tier powerhouse, actually needed her puppet technology. Even if she made a puppet with true life, it would only be filling a gap in the field of magecraft. Was it really useful to someone like him? There is no completely useless technology. That's all. Levi waved his hand and pushed the door open to leave. Aozuki Tuko sighed helplessly. Quanji Alice, who was tied up on the side, slowly moved her body, brought her head close to the document, bit the first page with her teeth, and flipped it open. I see. Aozuki Tuko heard the movement and turned her gaze over. Why, are you interested in helping? Quanji Alice was silent for a few seconds, then finally nodded. As long as you don't let that demon hurt Aoko. I'll help you. After leaving Aozuki Tuko's place, Levi had originally intended to go to Himehima Suzaku's side to check on Ryugi Shiki. He had asked Ryugi Shiki to follow Himehima Suzaku temporarily, and the other party had agreed without even thinking. This woman obviously knew what he meant by dumping Ryugi Shiki onto her. She had also seen Ryugi Shiki's combat power with her own eyes. But even so, she accepted it without a word. Whether viewed from a human perspective or from the Himahima family's standpoint, this woman can be considered an outlier. But that's exactly why it's more interesting. Thinking about these things, Levi walked out of the headquarters. Before he even reached the main gate, he heard a roar from that direction. Graphia. If you don't move aside, I won't be polite. This voice. Levi raised his eyebrows and walked toward the main entrance. After seeing the situation at the entrance clearly, he let out a breath, just as I thought, expression appearing on his face. Sarah Fall was standing at the entrance, her twin tails swinging rapidly. What are you doing? I ran all the way here and this is the attitude I get. Levi tilted his head and looked at her. You're one of the 4 great Satans of the underworld. Sears X is almost worked to the bone, yet you're quite free. Graphia tactfully retreated to the side. Sarah Fall leaned straight in front of him, her cheeks puffed up like buns. Sears X told me first thing in the morning that you were going to run away. Didn't we agree to get married next year? If you're going, take me with you. Levi frowned. Didn't you hate this marriage especially much before? You should be happy that I'm running away, so why chase me all the way here? He said this while reaching out to touch her forehead. Sarah Fall froze for a second, then slapped his hand away with a slap. What are you doing? Checking if you have a fever. As soon as Levi said this, Sarah Fall gritted her teeth in anger. She was just about to flare up, but Levi shook his head. You're really interesting. If I say I want to marry you, you're not happy. Now that I'm running away, you want me to take you with me. Then why would I even run away from the marriage? People will think we eloped. Sarah Fall froze, as if her tail had been stepped on. She had come in a hurry, goaded into rushing over by her father. Now that she thought about it, he was right. Shouldn't she be wishing for him to run away? She was struggling with this, when Levi suddenly spoke. Since you're already here, want to come inside and sit for a bit? Sarah Fall immediately became alert. She looked left and right, then stared suspiciously at Levi. What are you up to? Right, I have a scheme. Then you go back, I won't see you out. No way. You want me to leave, but I won't. Sarah Fall stepped into the door. Levi, however, turned and walked outside. Then let Graphia keep you company. I have things to do, I'm leaving first. Sarah Fall immediately followed. Although she was a diplomat of the underworld and looked casual, she wasn't stupid. She could see now, Levi had real business to attend to here. Fine. Since you insist on following me, then you can only blame yourself for walking into the trap. Sarah Fall thought this to herself, and Levi, looking at her appearance, couldn't help but grin. Follow if you want, Sarah Fall. For some reason, as soon as Sarah Fall saw that smile, she felt like she had been set up. But no matter how she thought about it, she couldn't figure out where she had fallen into it. Whatever. Just take it one step at a time. Thinking this, she lifted her foot and followed Levi. Anyway, since she was already here, and it was rare to not have to work, it wouldn't be bad to treat it as a vacation and rest for a few days. Levi had originally arranged everything clearly. Who should stay where, who should do what matters he needed to handle before leaving, what matters he instructed others to do, and how to handle things when he returned. Everything was arranged perfectly. Especially regarding that guy Rizvam, Levi put in the most effort, basically ensuring there would be no mishaps. After all, Rizvam, who claimed to be the strongest transcendent, couldn't beat Searsx in a one-on-one fight. Searsx could lead a team to chase him down alone, without any fear of Rizvam playing tricks. Searsx's subordinates, because of Rizvam, also had no sacred gear users that would allow him to exploit loopholes. It could be seen in the original plot that if Rizvam wanted to cause trouble, he still had to release those evil dragons and join forces with them before he dared to make a move. And what about later? He was cleaned up by the protagonist group, his right hand was broken, and he was finally slaughtered by Fafnir. The strongest transcendent. He was also the most shameful transcendent. If it weren't for his collusion with the Beast Emperor, Levi would have already made a move to kill him. Regarding his affairs, Levi had prepared 6 contingency plans to ensure nothing went wrong. But if some things could be settled directly, then there was no need to go through so much trouble. After all, plans never keep up with changes. Just like now. Levi, this place is the fallen angel's hideout, right? Sarah Fall scanned the surrounding fallen angels, her eyes quietly falling on Levi. She had completely calmed down now. To be honest, she hadn't expected Levi to bring her to the fallen angel's territory at all. That's right. Levi replied, pulling out the credentials Azazel had given him and showing them to the gatekeeping fallen angels. Those fallen angels immediately and respectfully cleared the way. Watching this, Seraphall's expression grew increasingly strange. Seraphall knew very well that Searsex had long told Levi that he intended to groom him for the position of Lucifer in the future, and he had laid it out quite clearly. Otherwise, she would have really suspected that the kid had defected. Since the 3 factions hadn't officially signed a peace treaty yet, the fallen angels could hardly be considered friends to the devils. Levi, you. Levi led Seraphall directly into Azazel's office. Just as Azazel turned to greet them, he caught sight of Seraphall standing beside Levi. Seraphall, this is truly a rare guest. Both devils and fallen angels lived in the underworld, but relations between the two sides weren't exactly great. Although it was the angels who first attacked the fallen angels, the angels stayed in heaven, whereas small conflicts between the fallen angels and the devils were the most frequent. If I came to see you, the governor of the fallen angels, by myself, your side certainly wouldn't agree to it, would they? Seraphall let out a sigh. She had originally thought she could take a break today, but looking at this situation, she still had to work. Fine. You too, shouldn't you explain to me what's going on right now? As Seraphall became serious, Azazel turned his gaze toward Levi. Levi spread his hands. Then I'll be blunt, the reason we're all together today is ultimately because of the Beast Emperor. The Beast Emperor. Isn't that thing sealed away? It is indeed sealed. Levi sighed softly. But what if someone wanted to get that thing out? Get it out. That Beast Emperor thing had no brain, didn't listen to commands at all, and destroyed whatever it caught. What kind of lunatic would want to let it? Seraphall stared at Levi, her thought process getting stuck halfway through. She actually did think of a madman capable of doing such a thing. That's right. It was Levi's grandfather, Rizvam. Hiss. At the thought, the smile on Seraphall's face faded bit by bit. Are you serious? Of course. Levi answered decisively, and Azazel nodded as well, his expression serious. Confirming this, Seraphall furrowed her brows and fell into deep thought. While she was digesting this information, Levi turned to look at Azazel. Azazel, did you go check on the Beast Emperor like I asked before? Yeah. Azazel nodded. The Beast Emperor is still sealed, and I couldn't get close. However, I tried several different channels and managed to get some idea of the situation over there. I heard that Rizvam did indeed break into the Beast Emperor's seal site back then, and he went in empty-handed but came out carrying something. No one knows exactly what it was. But according to what you said, if he dies, the Beast Emperor will awaken, so that thing he took out back then is 9 times out of 10 related to this matter. As soon as Azazel finished speaking, Levi nodded. He had long felt that that old fox Rizvam wouldn't keep the connection to the Beast Emperor on himself. That guy was best at playing dirty tricks, which was why he had asked Azazel to investigate. He hadn't expected to actually uncover something. However, is there any way to confirm what he took back then? Or, can we find the thing? Levi didn't want any complications. The best approach was to get his hands on that thing, then use the power of Yamato to sever the connection, rendering Rizvim's final trump card for survival useless. Then he wouldn't have to worry about anything, he could just lure him out and kill him, solving everything once and for all. Azazel shook his head. It's hard to say. The Beast Emperor's seal was cast by the Seraphs, so the administrative authority of the seal has always been held by the angels. Especially after Rizvim broke through the seal once, the angels have been watching it even more closely, so. At this point, Seraphal closed her eyes. Both of them felt that this was a dead end. But Levi's eyes lit up. The worst-case scenario he had originally worried about was that Rizvim had hidden that thing. In that case, he would either have to arrange a full set of combo packages for Rizvim before leaving, beating him half to death, and then having the whole world gang up on him. In the ideal state, he could even seal his sacred gear nullification ability along with it. By then, Rizvim would no longer be a threat, and he could busy himself with his own affairs before coming back to slowly deal with him, or deal with the Beast Emperor. But right now, this was clearly not the worst case. Azazel, are you certain that as long as we go to heaven, we can find the thing Rizvim took? Before Azazel could answer, Seraphal cried out first. Levi, you wouldn't be thinking of going to heaven, would you? She had absolutely not expected Levi to come up with such an idea. Levi, however, looked serious as he gazed at the somewhat stunned Seraphal and Azazel. This concerns the Beast Emperor and affects the safety of the entire world. What does it matter if we go to heaven? Could it be more dangerous than facing the Beast Emperor directly? He said it nicely, but in his heart, he was already eyeing his Morning Star skill. After hearing Levi's words, Azazel was silent for a long time. Finally, he sighed and said, "Fine, I did defect from heaven after all. Since you insist on going, I'll accompany you." Seraphal also sighed, her expression suddenly becoming exceptionally serious. "Your logic is sound, but Searsx values you so much, I can't just sit by and watch you throw your life away." After she said this, Azazel cast her a strange look. Seraphal didn't care how he looked at her and continued righteously, "If we get surrounded by angels in heaven, Azazel and I will risk our lives to get you out. When that time comes, just tell Sona not to be too sad. Then tell Searsx that the governor of the fallen angels is dead, and take the opportunity to annex the fallen angels, join forces with the fallen angels to take revenge on heaven." Hey, stop right there, I'm not dead yet. Azazel looked at Seraphal, feeling that she was about to arrange for his eulogy next. He quickly cut her off and reached up to scratch the back of his head. Geez. If the three of us go to heaven together, Michael surely can't just attack, right? The governor of the fallen angels, a devil Mao, and a member of the Lucifer clan visiting together, even he has to treat that cautiously. Upon hearing Azazel say this, Seraphal immediately switched from her tragic demeanor to a bored face. Ah, how boring, I was hoping to tease Levi a bit. Actually, from the beginning, neither of them had intended to go to heaven to gather information. But after Levi finished speaking, both of them realized it. Although it couldn't be called 100% safe, compared to letting Levi go alone, their presence would definitely be much more reliable. So, Seraphal's reaction just now was purely an act. Levi, if Azazel and I really risked our lives to protect you, would you be sad for us? Levi blinked and thought about it. If you two die. Hearing this, Azazel turned his head to look at him too. Levi continued, does that mean I get to go to the funeral banquet? Huh. The three of them chatted nonsense for a bit, then went their separate ways to contact their respective people. Once the news of the Beast Emperor reached heaven, both the fallen angels and the devils immediately became vigilant. After Levi explained things to Graphia, Graphia also proposed going to heaven together. Thus, the original three people became four. They each submitted their applications and set off immediately. Heaven. Michael looked at the several applications sent all at once by the fallen angels and the devils, and for a moment, he didn't know what to say. Gabriel stood beside him, frowning as she flipped through the applications. Michael, something must have happened that we angels are unaware of. Michael nodded after hearing this, his face expressionless. But this matter definitely has something to do with us angels, otherwise Azazel and Seraphal wouldn't have made the trip themselves. As for Levi Lucifer, can he really represent the old malfaction? Or is he just here to make up the numbers? Michael was somewhat unsure in his heart, and in the end, he sighed. Since things have come to this, our heaven will just do what it needs to do. But one thing, we absolutely cannot let anything happen to them in heaven, otherwise the three-way war will be blamed on us angels. Gabriel nodded in agreement. Understood. Michael watched Gabriel leave, his gaze piercing through layers of space and landing on that holy sword plunged into the angel birth pool. That was what God had left behind at the last moment, and it was the only sword plunged into the birth pool. As long as this sword was not pulled out, no new angels would be born. And the only one who could pull out this sword was the He mentioned in God's last words. Whenever Michael thought of that third dragon god who had disappeared after a fight with Great Red, he couldn't help but sigh. He had been in charge of the angel race for so many years, and he was truly exhausted. It just so happened that Searsex had said before that once their respective affairs were handled, they would hold three-way peace talks. Once peace was restored, he could go find the third dragon god in peace and ask the other party to preside over the situation. I really hope that day comes soon. The hopelessly dilapidated system, the sealed-off angel birth pool, sigh. Levi and the others passed through the passage connecting the human world to heaven and arrived directly in heaven. As soon as they landed, Gabriel came to greet them. I didn't expect you all to come together. It seems there really has been something happening in this world that we angels are unaware of. Azazel scratched his head and sighed. Yeah. Gabriel didn't ask further and led them directly toward Michael. Levi hadn't said a word since entering heaven. Because he had made an unexpected discovery. Levi had originally come to heaven just to figure out the connection between Rizvam and the Beast Emperor, he had no other thoughts. But once he arrived here, he discovered, Gabriel was actually an object he could check in on. Check in target Gabriel pull out the holy sword in the angel birth pool. If any other devil were to take this mission, they would basically be stuck here. But Levi was different. When he checked in previously, he had obtained Holy Sword Mastery. Although he was a devil, he possessed the Morning Star ability, which could grant immunity to light attribute damage. With these two trump cards, the only difficulty in completing this check-in was how to sneak into the angel birth pool. Thinking of this, Levi couldn't help but feel that this trip to heaven, aside from the Rizvam matter, might yield some other benefits. Gabriel had a check-in reward. What about Michael? The corners of his mouth curled up involuntarily. No one noticed his slight expression, but Ophus's voice suddenly echoed in his mind. Levi, you're quite happy. A little. In front of Ophus, Levi had nothing to hide. Then, do you like that angel's figure? I can turn into that too. No need, Ophus is the best just the way you are. I'm not happy because of Gabriel, it's because here in heaven, there should be something I want. Do you want me to go and take it back? No need, I'll do it myself. Thanks, Ophus. After soothing the dragon god, Gabriel led them to Michael's main hall. Considering that 3 devils had come this time, Michael specifically dimmed the radiance in the hall. Graphia and Seraphal still felt a bit uncomfortable, but given their strength, it was just a matter of frowning and enduring it. Only Levi felt absolutely nothing. This performance made Michael unable to help but glance at him again. However, before Michael could speak, Azazel walked directly to the front of the group and got straight to the point. I won't beat around the bush, Michael. Rizvam wants to release the Beast Emperor, and he already has a secure deployment and a clear plan, with a high success rate. Back when the 3 races were at war, God first led the angels to fight the Beast Emperor 666, and after that, he turned around and had a hard fight with the devils led by the four great Satans, eventually taking the four Satans down with him. If you talk about how much hatred there was for the devils, it really didn't reach that point. After all, God died, and the four Satans also died. Angels and devils are, frankly speaking, old rivals. There is no particularly personal grudge involved. What really makes angels generally dislike them is the Beast Emperor 666. No matter how you look at it, angels are the existence in this world that least wants to see the Beast Emperor's seal broken. If they could actually kill that thing, they would have probably snuck in and slaughtered it long ago. But right now, Rizvam wants to release the Beast Emperor. The method has been figured out, and even the preparations have been made. This is a big deal. Azazel, since you came here for this, you didn't just come to my place to inform me, did you? As soon as Michael finished speaking, Azazel nodded. That's right. When we were investigating the Beast Emperor 666 and Rizvam before, the intelligence networks of the devils and fallen angels could cover most of it, but some of the remainder is in your angel territory. So we need this part of the intelligence, and we also need you to use the system to help check the situation once the intelligence is gathered. Speaking of this, Azazel raised his hand and scratched the back of his head. If we're lucky, we can just kill Rizvam and be done with it. But if we're unlucky, you should understand, right, Michael? Michael's brows furrowed. If it really is the worst case scenario, and if the third dragon god refuses to help, they will have to engage in a hard grind with the Beast Emperor 666, fighting a war of attrition, using wheel tactics to slowly grind away its power. It might take thousands or even tens of thousands of years to grind it to death. Thinking of this possibility, Michael nodded directly at Azazel. We angels agree to share intelligence in this regard. But you also have to bring out the intelligence. This time it involves the Beast Emperor 666, so it's not a matter for one side, it's a matter for all three races. Hearing Michael say this, Seraphal opened her mouth with a smile. That's it. It seems Levi didn't choose wrong when he said he wanted to see you. Levi. Michael, reminded by Seraphal, finally turned his attention to Levi. Gabriel had already sent people to organize the intelligence. Taking advantage of this gap, Michael asked the question he had in his heart when he first saw Levi. Levi Lucifer. I have a question, I wonder if I can ask. As soon as Michael's question came out, everyone's eyes fell on Levi. Levi smiled, his tone very casual. Let's put it this way, I know you might not believe it. But although I am a pure-blooded devil, I am also a pure-blooded holy sword wielder. Unlike those holy sword wielders who reincarnated halfway, I have a certain natural resistance to the light attribute. He didn't mention the morning star, only the holy sword. But this alone was enough to make Michael and the others look full of surprise. Even Seraphal and Graphia turned to look at Levi, their eyes full of confusion. Levi had already thought of his excuse. After all, these things are now managed by that broken system. If it were in the past, this world probably wouldn't have allowed my kind to appear. But now, an accident has happened. He reached out and gestured a small distance. So, because I am a special holy sword wielder, my resistance to things like light, which specifically counters devils, is naturally stronger. Michael stared at the small gap he gestured, always feeling that a whole universe was hidden inside. Although the power was lowered, being able to ignore God's glory, this wasn't just a little stronger, it was clearly too much stronger. Somehow, Michael suddenly remembered the words God left behind. He originally wanted to take out Ascalon to verify Levi's identity as a holy sword wielder, but now, another idea popped into his head. Such a thing is really rare. Michael's voice was gentle, his tone carrying a hint of testing. Although I have my doubts, but Levi, there is an abandoned angel birth pool in heaven, with a holy sword stuck inside that no one can pull out. Since you are a holy sword wielder, would you like to try? When Levi heard this, his face broke into a smile. No problem. Michael felt he could verify that guess and smiled very happily. Levi felt this was a free sign in reward and smiled even happier than him. As for Azazel and Seraphal, the two had been numbed by a series of shocks. First, Levi, a devil, was actually a holy sword wielder. This matter itself was outrageous. Secondly, Levi, a devil, could actually block the weakened version of the glory. Just this point. As a devil, the existence of this ability itself made Azazel and Seraphal have to think deeply. In the huge, pitch-black space, Rizvam sat on his throne. The devils who had followed him out of the underworld were gathered around him at this moment. A devil was reporting the movements of the fallen angels. Lord Rizvam, the fallen angels seem to have started investigating the Beast Emperor, and they might find your plan. Should we send someone to interfere? Rizvam smiled contemptuously. No need. The contingency he left on the Beast Emperor's side was not that easy to uncover. Even if it were really discovered, it wouldn't matter. Because he placed the interface with the Beast Emperor in that location. Let them investigate. Even if they guess that I tampered with heaven, it doesn't matter. Rizvim's mouth curled upward. That place, no one can touch it. He set the interface at the angel birth pool. The sword left by the 14 gods was stuck there. Even if he went to pull it himself, with his strength, plus the ability of sacred gear nullification, he couldn't pull that sword out. Therefore, it was the safest place. Michael crossed his arms, his gaze solemn, his tone filled with unquestionable firmness. As long as no one can pull that holy sword out, even if the plan is exposed, it doesn't matter. To take a step back, even if someone could really pull it out, could they destroy the sword left by God? He paused and continued. God specifically left this thing behind, so it must be of great significance to the angels. Think about it, that sword can even seal the angel birth pool. It might be a contingency God left for himself. So there's no need to panic at all. The angels will fight to the death to protect that interface. Even if our plot is seen through, they will only be more desperate. Azazel smacked his lips, his face full of disdain. Tisk. The four great seraphs actually mobilized in full force, and still let Rizvam take advantage of the loophole. Your heaven's defense is really too pathetic. Seraphal nodded vigorously from the side, clearly siding with Azazel. Michael and Gabriel looked at each other and could only smile bitterly. Although there were indeed urgent matters at the time, the fact that Rizvam broke into their lair was an indisputable fact. This loss of face couldn't be washed away. The key is that the guy's intrusion triggered the current mess and also involved the Beast Emperor. Michael closed his eyes and apologized in a low voice. I am truly sorry. Azazel saw him like this and sighed. Compared to apologizing, the problem now is more tricky. I originally thought the box in Rizvim's hand was his link to the Beast Emperor, but he looked at the sword sealing the angel birth pool and moved the interface over there directly. When Azazel was an angel before, he still had an impression of the angel birth pool. Plus, Levi had told him that Rizvam had the ability of sacred gear nullification, so the opponent could suppress the power of the holy sword and resist God's glory. He wasn't too surprised that these things happened. That sword can suppress the angel birth pool, and you angels don't care. That must have been left by that person, no doubt. In this way, not to mention that we can't pull it out at all. Even if we really pulled it out, can you angels let us destroy this sword? In the past, Azazel would have pondered whether they could destroy the sword left by that person. But since knowing that Levi has the ability of fantasy destruction, he felt that destroying the sword should not be a problem, so these words were to probe Michael's attitude. As for the result, no. If it were just an ordinary holy sword, Michael wouldn't be so serious. But this is something left by God, relating to the arrival of the future new God. Destroy it. Absolutely no way. Unless the one doing it is the new God himself. After hearing Michael's words, the I knew it expression on Azazel's face was not hidden at all. Seraphal's eyes slowly narrowed into slits. Graphia didn't speak, just turned to look at Levi. She noticed that the smile on the corner of Levi's mouth had never changed from beginning to end, and the stone in her heart finally fell to the ground quietly. Levi indeed opened his mouth. That sword doesn't need to be destroyed. I can remove the interface Rhizome left on it. And Michael, didn't you say before that you wanted me to go and try to see if I could pull the sword? As he spoke, he had already stood up. Then leave this matter to me. I can swear in the name of Lucifer, or if you don't feel at ease, leaving a contract is also fine. Let me try, how about it? Hearing these words, the eyes of Azazel and Seraphal fell on Levi together. Michael thought for a while and nodded at him. He had this intention in the first place. What's more, that is the holy sword left by God. Although Azazel just said to destroy it, Michael knew in his heart that this sword was not so easy to destroy. God has been dead for so many years, it's not that no one on the angel side has had ideas about the angel birth pool, they have tried many times openly and secretly, all of which failed. That sword could not be destroyed easily, nor could it be moved easily. That was the conclusion heaven had reached after so many years. Rhizome being able to attach an interface to that sword using special powers had already shocked Michael and the others. As for destroying the sword, they simply couldn't imagine such a scene. Seraphal's thoughts were much the same. Only Azazel secretly used magic to send a message to Levi. Don't you go thinking about destroying the sword in secret, otherwise, even if the Beast Emperor doesn't come out, war will break out again here in heaven. Levi listened and nodded at him. Trust me. The war won't happen. Since Rhizome left the interface here, I'm going to strip away his greatest amulet, the Beast Emperor, today. Once Rhizome is dealt with, peace for the three factions can truly arrive. We have reached the final step toward peace. I won't drop the ball at this moment. Azazel watched Levi follow behind Michael and Gabriel, walking toward the angel birth pool, and was momentarily lost in thought. Until he realized he had been left behind, he let out a self-deprecating laugh. I really am getting more cowardly as I get older. Think back to when I fell from heaven for a woman, cough. Although it wasn't exactly a glorious affair, my courage back then was much greater than it is now. Sigh. Just as Levi said. To devils, light is no different from a deadly poison. Powerful devils might be able to find their own ways to endure it. But generally speaking, light still makes them uncomfortable. Just like before in the Great Hall, even though Michael intentionally suppressed the diffusion of God's glory, Seraphal and Graphia still furrowed their brows. But Levi was different. The place where he stood was the angel birth pool of heaven. This place was originally where angels were born. But ever since the holy sword left behind by God was thrust here, no new angels had been able to emerge from it. To be able to seal a pool so important to angels, that holy sword was certainly no ordinary item. This aura. The two devils were the first to notice something wrong. Seraphal narrowed her eyes, her voice laced with vigilance. Before in the Great Hall, what I felt was merely God's glory. But here, this is already God's majesty. The situation here could no longer be handled just by furrowing one's brows. Even though Michael used the system to suppress the light of heaven to its lowest point, when they stepped into this place, they could still feel as if there was fire burning in the air. Seraphal sighed. I'm not surprised at all that a guy like Rhizome would find a place like this. With that crazy drive of his, he likely saw that the light here was the densest and just crept over. After all, even among all devils, that guy is a notorious lunatic. As the two of them sighed, Levi braved the overwhelming majesty of God and walked all the way to the deepest part of the angel birth pool. That specially recessed area was originally supposed to be a pool. But now the water in the pool had long since dried up, not a single drop remaining. In the very center of the pool floor, a sword was thrust. Levi walked over and gripped the hilt with one hand. The moment he touched it, that majesty of God surged violently, increasing several times over. Michael watched Levi and discovered that he had absolutely no reaction. He remembered the last words God had left behind. Originally, he was just holding onto a try and see mindset, but at this moment, a bit more expectation grew in his heart. Gabriel had the same expression. Azazel was the same. Only Seraphal and Graphia, while struggling to withstand that pressure, stared worriedly at Levi. After all, he was standing in the place where the light was the most concentrated. They were afraid he wouldn't be able to hold on. So that's how it is. After gripping the hilt, Levi finally understood what level of skill the so-called holy sword mastery actually was. As soon as his hand gripped the hilt, a vast amount of knowledge regarding the usage of this type of cruciform sword flooded into his brain like a tide. That feeling was incredibly strange. The holy sword felt like it was growing out of his hand, requiring no effort at all. He just gave it a casual grip and a casual lift. Shing! A flash of white light went by, and Levi hoisted the holy sword directly above his head. Where the sword was pulled out, golden liquid gushed out, and Levi was enveloped in a layer of golden light, slowly floating into midair. At this moment, the radiance of God's majesty exploded completely. Seraphal and Graphia instinctively wanted to channel their magic to resist. But just in the second they were about to raise their hands, Levi's gaze swept over, and the radiance of God's majesty receded like a tide, instantly pulling back. That's right. The moment Levi pulled the sword, he understood. God's majesty was an ability inherent to this sword. To deal with devils, this level was more than enough. But this majesty could be raised further, to a higher level, because this ability wasn't meant for devils at all, it was meant for commanding angels. Besides this, the other functions of this sword were similar to ordinary holy swords. Slaying evil spirits, devils, strange gods, and 100 demons all had enhanced damage. It was absurdly sharp and would never break regardless of how it was used. That's what is said, but Levi knew in his heart that if he encountered the imagined breaker, this sword wouldn't be able to withstand it. If it were Tuma Kamiju, the moment his right hand touched the hilt, all miracles on the sword would be ruined on the spot. Unfortunately, he was not. His imagined breaker was not limited to one hand, it was a form of energy that could be controlled at will. When not in use, it retreated into his right hand, and when needed, this energy could turn any part of his body into an imagined breaker, and it wouldn't have any unlucky side effects. Nearby, the golden pool water had already flooded the angel birth pool. Levi stood at the very top of the pool, wrapped tightly in hymns and light. Seeing this scene, Michael nearly knelt down directly. Because he knew clearly in his heart that if Levi could pull out this sword, it meant, he was the third dragon god, the existence God spoke of in his last words, the one who would eventually arrive. But before he could make any big movements, Levi had already suppressed the radiance of the holy sword and landed directly in front of them all. The sword is done. Next, I'm going to strip out the coordinates Rizvam left on the sword. You all get ready, fix this interface, and then destroy it directly. Hearing Levi say this, Gabriel, Azazel, and Seraphal finally came back to their senses from the shock. Graphia didn't say a word and immediately started preparing. Michael was stunned for a moment, then finally realized the situation. He pondered for a moment. Since Lord Levi was the third dragon god and this had never been mentioned publicly, he was likely hiding his tracks. If he didn't want to expose his identity, and he accidentally let it slip, that would be disastrous. Thinking of this, while the others were preparing the magic circle, Michael spoke up with a smile. Levi, Levi, since you can use this holy sword, it belongs to you. And you unsealed the angel birth pool, allowing the angel race to continue. I am truly very grateful to you. After saying this, Michael winked at Levi. If there's ever anything the angels can help with in the future, don't be polite. He felt his hint was obvious enough. Lord Levi must have understood. But Levi silently took 2 steps to the side. His first reaction was that Michael's eyes were having problems. Immediately after, a thought popped into his head. Could this guy be the kind of person who likes men? Hiss. However, the guy was, after all, the current leader of the angels. Levi didn't say much more, just retreated a few more steps and nodded with a forced smile. If I really need help, I will. Michael felt the meaning had been conveyed and fell silent. Levi also breathed a sigh of relief. Once Graphia nodded at him, he drew Yamato, holy sword in one hand and katana in the other, and touched the two weapons together. A red ball of light was pushed out from the holy sword. The ball of light tried to dissipate as soon as it appeared, but Graphia, Seraphal, Azazel, and Gabriel acted simultaneously, unfurling a massive magic circle. The red ball of light was firmly trapped within the circle. Levi immediately put away the holy sword and Yamato, channeled the power of imagination, and grabbed the ball of light. Crack. Rizvim's amulet was destroyed. The connection between him and the Beast Emperor was completely severed. Seeing this scene, everyone present, regardless of what schemes they were harboring, breathed a sigh of relief. Rizvim, hiding in the dimensional gap, suddenly changed his expression drastically. He recalled the words he had previously said to the devil who came to report, and for a moment, he was so angry that his magic power leaked out frantically. He never expected it to turn out like this. He thought the ones who should be in despair were the others. He thought he would be able to watch them stare blankly like clowns. But he never imagined. The clown was actually himself. With the holy sword in hand, the relationship with the angels established, and Rizvim's amulet destroyed. Azazel began to ponder what Levi intended to do next. This matter really couldn't be taken lightly. You saw Searsex's attitude toward you. If you really want to do something, the devils will likely support you with everything they have. You yourself are of the Lucifer clan, and the old Satan faction won't go against you either. Azazel said, his gaze sweeping between Levi and Seraphal. I also heard that Seraphal, this Leviathan, is one of your fiancés. You might not have thought about these things before, but now, it's time to think about them carefully. Azazel rarely put on a serious face. Whether it's for our three factions or for this world, Levi, you have, without realizing it, become a figure who can influence the direction of this world. So I hope, for the things that follow, you can consider them seriously and thoroughly. As soon as Azazel finished speaking, Seraphal's face turned bright red. Logically speaking, it wouldn't be strange for this willful and reckless devil girl to rush up and strike Azazel upon hearing the word, fiancé. But at this moment, she just lowered her head, her face burning hot, without saying a single word. Levi felt a bit concerned. However, compared to Seraphal, whose brain was always a bit abnormal, he still focused his attention back on Azazel. As for the things that follow, I had originally arranged a series of plans. Afterward, I will be leaving for a period of time due to some matters. Originally, I wanted to deal with Rizvim before that, and clean him up slowly after I returned. But now his amulet is gone, relying solely on that title of the strongest transcendent won't save his life. So I will find a way to lure him out and kill him directly. After this is done, I will probably disappear for a few years. Azazel sighed after listening. It seems Valley's wish to punch his grandfather in the face won't be realized. Levi gave Azazel a meaningful look and said with hidden meaning. It's fine, he can just pick another target. After finishing their discussion, Azazel took his leave. Since he knew Levi was planning to move against Rizvim, he had to make preparations in advance on the side of Grigori and the fallen angels in the underworld. After all, this world didn't just consist of their three factions, various other pantheons were also eyeing them like tigers watching their prey. Seraphal calculated the situation. Without the support of the gods, even with their three factions combined, they might not be able to secure the position of the world's #1 pantheon. Therefore, they had to be on strict guard against other pantheons. Currently, the one they needed to keep the closest eye on was Hades, the king of the underworld, who also had influence in the underworld. Besides him, the god of destruction, who ranked second in the world, could not be taken lightly either. After all, before Rizvam claimed to be the strongest transcendent, the true ceiling in Azazel's eyes was that god of destruction. Whether it was the transcendent, main god, or dragon god level, that guy sat firmly on the throne of the strongest. That was why Azazel went back to handle these matters. Michael was likely making similar arrangements on his end. Logically speaking, Seraphal should have returned to the underworld by now. Yet, she still lingered by Levi's side. Don't you need to go back? Do you think I should go back? Seraphal countered with a question. Levi frowned. Come to think of it, I've felt something was off about you since a moment ago. What's wrong? Did the glory of the gods dazzle your brain back in heaven? As soon as he said that, Seraphal raised an eyebrow. Before she could speak, Levi had already turned to look at Graphia beside them, his face full of concern. Seraphal's brain isn't very good to begin with, so I won't hold it against her. Graphia, are you okay? Did you suffer any ill effects? Hearing this, even Graphia couldn't help but chuckle softly. Rest assured, I am fine, Lord Levi. Her tone was gentle. Seraphal, however, was completely triggered by Levi's two sentences. She pounced on him on the spot, hooking her arms around his neck. What do you mean this Mao's brain isn't good? You're just going to ignore me if I'm affected, right? What's wrong with me? Levi struggled for quite a while before pulling her off. Looking at Seraphal, who was puffing out her cheeks, he nodded. That's more like you. Although you might not have noticed it yourself, the impression you give me is that you're quite mature when you're acting as the Mao Leviathan, but usually, you're just like this. That's why I felt you were acting weird just now. Something up. Facing Levi's questioning, Seraphal exhaled. Fine, since I've already left you with that impression, it would feel awkward if I kept pretending, so forget it, I won't pretend anymore. She seemed quite devastated by her failure to act cute. But even with this minor trauma, Seraphal straightened her expression and looked at Levi earnestly. Levi. Although this is the first time I've ever said something like this, you're probably the only one who could make me say it. And because it's so embarrassing, I'm only saying it once. Seraphal took a deep breath and looked straight at Levi. Levi, let's have a child. Previously, her feelings about this engagement were quite complicated. She couldn't say she liked it, but she didn't want to be seen by outsiders as the one who got dumped. But things were different now. She had completely accepted this, and was even a bit relieved. Of course, it had nothing to do with feelings. I know you don't like beating around the bush, so I'll be blunt. You are a pure-blooded devil of the house of Lucifer, and a holy sword wielder. Moreover, the holy sword you wield is incredibly powerful, so powerful that your resistance to light is ridiculously high. To put it plainly, with a bloodline like this among devils, no family or individual could simply refuse it. Devils naturally placed great importance on bloodlines. Although, due to differences in individual strength and values, some devils might only take interest in the top-tier bloodlines without being swayed by them. But now, a bloodline had appeared that could directly shake the decisions of these people. It was Levi's bloodline. It was the only bloodline of a pure-blooded Mao-class devil that was immune to light. Invincible. To a devil, this was equivalent to the final answer, the destination, the apex. It was the strongest, most perfect bloodline. Even Seraphal was tempted when she saw it. However, if it were only that, she felt it would be unfair to Levi. So, let's get married, and then have a child. After that, whether it's Sona, Rias, or even Graphia beside you, I wouldn't mind. Of course, I know you might not accept this kind of relationship. No, I can accept it. But we can slowly cultivate feelings after marriage, devils are naturally. Wait, what did you say? Levi blinked, looking at Seraphal. I said I can accept it, why did you think I definitely wouldn't? Sarah Fall had never had intimate contact with the opposite romance, and she had mostly learned about such things from storybooks in the underworld. According to the reactions of male leads in stories, shouldn't you be very resistant and then righteously reject me? Levi looked at her with a subtle gaze. First of all, we are engaged. The stuff about feelings you mentioned just now, did we have feelings for each other when the engagement was signed? So, since I happily accepted the engagement, getting closer to my fiancé, what's there to not accept? Sarah Fall suddenly felt like a little white rabbit that had delivered itself to the door. Sarah Fall's face flushed hot instantly. She couldn't help but ask the question in her heart. Levi, if that's what you think, then why did you run away? Run. I genuinely had serious business to attend to for a few years. Running away from the marriage was just a side effect. After all, your dad was a bit too impatient. Having children, getting married. Although most of Levi's mind was already governed by the logic of devils, he still retained a bit of human thinking. He felt that having these two things crammed together was truly suffocating. As for children, there was nothing to worry about. If devils were truly so capable of getting things done in this regard, the number of pure bloods wouldn't be recovering so slowly. Nor would they be forced to arrange marriages between pure bloods. Starting to try at this age was just right for a devil, perhaps even a bit late. As for marriage, Sarah Fall, can you wait for me a little longer? Hearing Levi say this, Sarah Fall glanced at him and then nodded with a smile. Tilda. Sarah Fall had originally thought that it would be good to delay the marriage a bit to give herself some psychological buffer. But now she really wanted to splash a bucket of cold water on herself from a few days ago. The situation was not looking good. Before, her understanding of Levi was limited to knowing what kind of person he was, but she didn't know what he was actually doing on a daily basis. Today, she had witnessed it. She and Grafia had been following Levi, first going to find Aozuki Tuko and Kwanji Alice, bringing some things to those two. Then they went to see Yukumo Yukari, mainly to tell her that the plan regarding Rizebom had changed and they intended to take direct action. But the arrangements on her side didn't need to change. Then Levi took her to meet Kuroka and her group of servants one by one. Finally, they went to a cafe to meet up with Himehima Suzaku and Ryugi Shiki. After running around all this way, why was Levi surrounded by nothing but women? Thinking deeper, Sarah Fall felt she had to count Sona and Rias in as well. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but turn and look at Levi. Could it be that she had run into one of those legendary high-level players and was being played? This thought flashed through her mind. But then again, this was something she had initiated herself, and she still felt she wasn't losing out. However, she was still feeling a bit uneasy inside. Sarah Fall stood on the side, watching Levi and Himehima Suzaku chatting there. She had originally been pondering something in her mind. But after listening to just one sentence, all those messy thoughts from before vanished. Levi, there has been a lot of movement from the Yukai side recently, our sides. That was my arrangement. Wouldn't it be better to let those old folks in your family catch their breath a bit more? Why are you in such a hurry? Himehima Suzaku's brows twitched, but she didn't say much, just nodded. I'm just afraid something might go wrong. Rest assured, nothing will go wrong. You remember what I told you before, right? Once you finalize things on your end, I'll act quickly on mine, so don't worry about it. After saying this, Levi leaned back, his whole body sinking into the chair. He cast a glance at Sarah Fall beside him from the corner of his eye. She was no longer tense. Tisk. He hated these kinds of things the most. But having reached this point, no matter how annoying, he had to do it. He had long noticed that Sarah Fall was feeling restless and uneasy. That was why he brought her to meet Himehima Suzaku. Sure enough, one sentence was all it took to steady her. She probably thought that with his level of emotional intelligence, no matter how many women were around him, there was no threat. Levi rubbed his temples. Before meeting Ophis, he was well aware that he was someone with zero emotional intelligence. But ever since being knocked awake by the dragon god, coming into contact with these things, and getting a taste of the benefits, the subsequent things came almost naturally without a teacher. Awareness, concepts, routines, everything clicked at once. Maybe he was born a player. It was just like back when he hadn't opened his eyes yet, like Kotamine Kire, he didn't even know what kind of person he was. Once he opened his eyes, he recalled. Although he didn't like beating around the bush himself, nor did he want to lecture anyone on grand principles. But Kuroka, Ingvild, Sakura, Tiamat, as well as Graphia, Artoria, Seraphal. It seemed that even before he had opened his eyes, he had instinctively done some things. Thinking of this, Levi didn't continue to ponder. He turned to look at Ryugi Shiki. Shiki, do you get along with her? Ryugi Shiki glanced at Himehime Suzaku and nodded. I don't like her, but I can put up with her. This sounded quite reluctant. But Levi knew that Ryugi Shiki was just that kind of person. In the original work, she disliked Aozuki Tuko, but if they could get along, she would accompany her to the end. Her standard for judging people wasn't liking or disliking them. It was whether or not they could get along. If they can be dealt with, whether I like them or hate them, I'm willing to play along to the end. If they can't be dealt with, then there's really no way. So your evaluation of, I don't like her but I can put up with her, is actually quite decent, not good, but not bad either. Himehime Suzaku looked visibly disappointed after hearing this. Shiki is just that kind of person. For her to give you such an evaluation is already giving you a lot of face. Don't dwell on this. I called you here this time because I wanted to tell you about my next arrangements. Hearing Levi say this, Himehime Suzaku took a deep breath, readjusted her expression, and nodded at him. Please, go ahead. Regarding the previous matter, it seems you have successfully relayed it to the ears of your current Himehime family head, Himehime Zuahuang. He has indeed started to make a move on his end. Right now, he is following the direction I guided him in, searching for that black-haired girl in the Far East, that much is correct. However, for certain reasons, Rizvam, oh, that's the guy I'll be dealing with after I finish cleaning up your 5 great families, he is also looking for that black-haired girl. Speaking of which, Levi paused for a moment, leaving time for Himehime Suzaku to digest the information. Then he began to laugh. So, you should prepare yourself. Tonight, the 100 demons will lay siege to your 5 great families. When that happens, Rizvam will kill the Himehime family head. You understand what I mean, right? It is Rizvam who will do the killing. I understand. Himehime Suzaku had always been a smart woman. Then I will leave the matters after that for me to resolve. You helped me achieve my goal, and I will fully cooperate with you afterwards. It's just that, those 100 demons you mobilized. She asked tentatively, and then saw Levi smile even more brightly. How could I possibly have the ability to mobilize the 100 demons? Those were clearly summoned by Rizvam himself, so, whether you live or die depends on yourselves. However, after things are settled here, I will be making a move on Rizvam. If he has a little less combat power on his side, it will be more convenient for me. You understand what I mean, right? After listening, Himehime Suzaku nodded slowly. In the end, this man is playing both sides. He uses the forces of Rizvam, whom he is about to deal with, to do his bidding, while simultaneously using the combat power of the 5 great families to weaken his opponent. And he is also telling her that he will handle Rizvam personally later, allowing her to act with confidence and boldness. Thinking about it further, this should also be a test of her own abilities. Thinking to this point, Himehime Suzaku made a brand new assessment of Levi's danger level. Without a doubt, this person must absolutely not become an enemy. Even if he didn't have much strength, just his methods alone were already terrifying enough. As an opponent, this is simply a despair-inducing existence. Himehima Suzaku had a change of thought. At the moment, the two of them were at least in the same boat, which made her feel much more at ease. She took a deep breath, adjusted her emotions, and nodded at Levi. I understand. In the evening, Graphia had already returned a step ahead. Levi and Seraphal walked side by side on the path by the seaside, the streetlights stretching their shadows long. Occasionally a car drove by, and the salty sea breeze blew over as he asked a question. Seraphal, did your perception of me get refreshed today? It's all right. The little bit of worry Seraphal had in her heart earlier, regarding the fact that he had too many women around him, was largely put to rest. As for the plan targeting the 5 great families that Levi mentioned later, she was a devil, after all. And she was the Leviathan, a diplomat of the devils. Playing these kinds of tricks externally, she actually felt that this was normal. However, are you trying to use the matter of the 5 great families to lure Rizvam out? Seraphal was a bit confused. Levi smiled. Of course not, that is merely an appetizer. Speaking to this point, his tone shifted abruptly. Seraphal, you are not from the house of Lucifer, so you might not be aware. Actually, the day after tomorrow is the birthday of Rizvim's grandfather. Huh. Seraphal was stunned by this sudden turn. Then Levi spoke again. Valley, you should have heard Searzex mention him, my younger brother, the White Dragon Emperor of this generation. I won't make it for his birthday, as I will probably have to leave before then. But I still remember grandfather's birthday. Valley has probably long forgotten it. Sigh, what a misfortune for the family. Valley has already run away from home anyway, so let's forget about him. But since grandfather is celebrating his birthday the day after tomorrow, I can't even remember exactly how old he is, I intend to send him a birthday gift. The matter of the 5 great families is just a starter. Given his temper, even if he knew, he wouldn't take it to heart, and he probably wouldn't even bother to care. But I believe that once he sees the gift I send, he will surely be moved to death, and then take the initiative to come find me, to show concern for this junior who has always been treated as a transparent person. So, Levi stopped walking, pushed open the gate of the residence prepared by Tasaka for Seraphal, and signaled for her to go in and rest first. You go ahead and rest, I still need to go prepare the birthday gift for grandfather. Seeing Levi like this, Seraphal blinked. Then, PFF'd. She really couldn't help it and laughed out loud. If it were any other human seeing Levi like this, they would probably feel afraid, just like Himehima Suzaku. But Seraphal was different. She only felt interesting. Seraphal finished laughing, her expression turned serious, and she looked at Levi. Levi, regarding dealing with Rizvam, do you want me to give Searzex a heads up? He claims to be the strongest transcendent. That's true, but his strength is indeed at the genuine transcendent level. Seeing her worried face, Levi smiled and shook his head. No need. When speaking of Rizvam, Levi put away the sarcastic tone from just now, and he became much more normal. How strong Rizvam is, I know, Valley knows, and also that father who was killed by his own hands, no one understands him better than we do. We all understand that the blood of Lucifer carries a cursed fate. And that curse, from the day he was born, has been called Rizvam. He is the shadow of Lucifer. In order to overcome this shadow, I have prepared for a long time. This is a matter between him and me. To deal with him, I have made too many preparations. That shadow which has shrouded Lucifer for thousands of years or even longer, it is time for it to be torn apart. Rest assured, this battle will definitely have a result. The one who wins will not be him. After listening, Seraphal stared at Levi for a long while. She didn't see any desperate determination in Levi's eyes, nor did she see a will to die. She only saw a smile, and full confidence. Seeing this look, Seraphal finally felt at ease. That's good. In any case, be careful. After speaking, she walked in front of Levi with her hands behind her back, stood on tiptoes, and looked up. After finishing that action, she jumped back 2 steps, retreating with small, quick steps. With that slightly flushed cheek, she blinked at Levi. I'll be waiting for you, Tilda. Leaving this sentence behind, she turned and slipped into the house. Levi touched his own face, feeling a bit helpless. As expected. Just as Seraphal had left, Ophis crawled out from a space rift and wrapped her arms around Levi's neck as if to declare ownership. Lower your head. After sending Ophis away, Levi leaned against the courtyard wall alone and casually constructed the spell formation to connect with Rizvam. Levi, do you want my help? At that time I will need you to seal off the surroundings, don't let him run. You can rest assured about the rest, he is no match for me. Oh. The communication with Ophis ended, and the connection with Rizvam was also made. Levi, have you found Ophis? There is no definite result yet, but I have a general direction. If Ophis is really hiding in the Far East, then there is only one last place that hasn't been checked. But for that location, even if I move all the forces in the vicinity over there, I'm afraid it still won't be stable enough. Do you have any high-ranking combat power on your side that can be temporarily transferred over to hold the line? A clear sense of displeasure appeared in Rizvim's tone. Levi could almost see the look of the other party knitting his brows. Immediately after, he added, the largest forces here in the Far East, the 5 great families, I don't know what's going on, but they have also started grabbing little girls who look like Ophis. Although those 5 families are mostly trash, their family heads and the 4 gods, especially that yellow dragon, are not easy to deal with. After listening to him, although Rizvam was still dissatisfied, he nodded. Ophis was too critical to his plan. Got it. Tomorrow morning, my people will arrive. That is truly appreciated. HMPH. Levi, you trash had better be able to find Ophis this time, otherwise, you don't need me to remind you of your father's fate, do you? I understand. Levi replied, and the communication was immediately cut off. He clenched his fists, licked his dry lips after the call ended, and then lowered his head and laughed. He knew exactly about the batch of devils that Rizvam took away from the house of Lucifer when he left. They were basically all high-class devils. As for the ultimate class devil, which is extremely rare for the devil race, Rizvam only has one in his hands. If he wants to deal with the 5 great families, he must either come personally, or he can only send that one and only ultimate class devil, the most useful chess piece under his command. If he really comes personally, then the day after tomorrow won't be about celebrating his birthday, we can just hold his funeral feast directly. If he follows the plan and sends that ultimate class devil over. Levi flicked his hand, and a black mass appeared in his palm. That was the seal Rizvam had placed on him. He had extracted it from his own body the day he obtained the Yamato. A seal that even Searzex and Ajuka basically cannot undo, a seal that would even kill a devil king if it erupted. Hey, thanks, Rizvam, for thinking so highly of me. And I hope that when you receive your birthday gift the day after tomorrow, you can still laugh. Everyone is back. Levi sat on the living room sofa, watching his peerage members arrive one by one, and nodded gently. The preparations for the large-scale spell formation are almost ready, NYA. As long as the spell is deployed, and the anchor is fixed, it will be fine. Kuroka hadn't seen Levi for a long time. Right now, she was clinging to him, just like a spoiled cat. Sharon also nestled into his arms, finding a comfortable position to sit. The spell part is basically like that. However, before the official start, there are still some miscellaneous matters to handle. I have also obtained some new intelligence on my end, so the number of targets we need to deal with has changed. Hearing the word, target, come out of Levi's mouth, Kuroka immediately put away her playful mood and waited quietly for him to continue. The other peerage members also straightened their postures in unison. Levi scanned them all and continued. I remember when we first started preparing for this large-scale spell formation, I mentioned it, our team is mainly focusing on 3 targets this time. He extended his fingers as he spoke. The first one, a short-term goal, is to help Artoria confirm whether the decision she made back then was correct or not. Upon hearing this, Artoria nodded slightly. Thank you. Don't be so polite, we are all family, isn't it only right to help you? Levi waved his hand and continued. The second one, a mid-term goal, is to resolve my grandfather, Rizvam. The third one is a long-term goal. At the moment, there is nothing specific to do, everyone just needs to work hard to improve your strength. After hearing these 3 goals, the peerage members nodded one after another. Tiamat hesitated for a moment and spoke. So, are we going to deal with Rizvam? Isn't it a bit too early? She still harbored memories of being sealed in the imaginary number world, that Tiamat was a being on the level of a heavenly dragon, a main god, a transcendent. That sense of helplessness when facing an absolute powerhouse still hadn't fully dissipated even now. Levi shook his head with a smile. Rather than saying we are going to take on Rizvam, it's more that I destroyed his amulet, and now I intend to go and settle the score with him myself. Tiamat's eyes widened, and she furrowed her brows. I admit I do have trauma regarding opponents of that level, but when we dragons are truly desperate, we never take a single step back. Kuroka didn't say anything, but she didn't quite understand it either. Apart from Sakura, Sharon, and Ingvild, who had no concept of Rizvam, even Artoria couldn't help but speak up. Levi, you going to challenge such a strong opponent alone, this isn't like you. Indeed. Levi was never the type to cast himself as a hero or strike a pose for a one-on-one fight. He was a devil. Only when facing an opponent like Great Red, where the gap in strength was absurdly large, would he choose a one-on-one fight, and that was mostly because, after activating his Sin Devil trigger, he would lose his sanity and be unable to distinguish friend from foe. Besides that, his consistent approach was that if he could gang up on someone, he would never fight one-on-one. Because Levi's subordinates knew him so well, they were even more unable to figure out what he was planning. Relax. Levi waved his hand with a smile. I'm not some idiot who rushes into death just because of a hot head, nor am I so sentimental that I have to force some cliché reason like, I'm doing this for your own good, or, I want to protect you, onto myself. You all have decent strength, and as partners, you are absolutely reliable, I believe in that. Alright, I'll just speak plainly. He took a deep breath and poured it all out. My current normal strength is about the same as Kuroka's and Ingvild's were before. We are all at the ceiling of the ultimate class devil level. I have a feeling that it won't be long before I can officially step over the line into the Satan class. As for my devil trigger, that is the strongest level within the Satan class. One more step up from there, and that would be a transcendent. So I am in urgent need of pressure, specifically the kind of pressure that comes from a transcendent. I need to rely on this force to help me take that final step. Hearing him say this, the group of subordinates who had been furrowing their brows finally relaxed their expressions. Levi continued. So, when the time comes, I will lure Rizvam out. I've already chosen the battlefield. All you need to do is make sure no one else comes running over to get in the way. Understood. Since things had been laid out this clearly, the subordinates didn't say anything more. After all, Levi wasn't just acting on a whim or courting death. He had his reasons, and he still held the trump card of his Sin Devil trigger. Even if he really fell into a disadvantage, at most Rizvam would just slip away. It wouldn't be easy for anything to happen to Levi himself. At this moment, Yakumo Yukari glanced at him. What about that one? The question was vague, but as soon as Levi heard it, he knew who she was talking about. Ophis will definitely follow me. I need someone with enough strength to keep an eye on Rizvam, so he doesn't get away. At the level of a transcendent, if they are determined to escape, ordinary barriers simply won't be able to stop them. Then we know what to expect. Seeing that Levi had already paved the way, the subordinates finally felt completely at ease. With no one opposing him, Levi set the plan for what was to come. The day after tomorrow happens to be Rizvim's birthday. We might as well take the opportunity to throw him a proper party. As for today, the headquarters of the Himahima clan, one of the 5 great families. This was the lair of the old school faction, adhering to traditional rules and refusing to get involved with outside forces. Led by the Himahima clan head, with the heads of the Domon, Kushihashi, and Shinra families as deputies, they were united as one. On the other side was the Okanoin faction, led by the new head of the 100 Demons, the 100 Demons God General Koryu, who advocated for contact with external forces. The two sides had long been at odds over certain matters. To the group from Okanoin, the Himahima clan's main estate was just another lair. The faction here regarded this place as more important than their own lives. When it came to methods for dealing with evil spirits, the Himahima clan was more than 10 times more brutal than the Okanoin side. Therefore, while ordinary yokai might dare to go to Okanoin to court death, absolutely no one dared to come and mess with the Himahima clan's lair. Fighting here meant the opponents were hard to chew, and there was nothing to gain. It was purely a case of being bored and looking for trouble. But some guys didn't want benefits, they just wanted a worthy opponent. Those naturally belligerent lunatics, just to test how strong they had become, would find any excuse to rush in and fight. The light of the yokai, Kokubo, illuminated the surroundings of the Himahima clan from all directions. By the time the barrier's sensors sent back the alert, the Himahima clan had already been completely surrounded. Blocked in the center by the overwhelming 100 Demons night parade, coming from all sides like a tide. What's going on? Himahima Juu was dragged out of bed. By the time he sobered up and took charge of the situation, the demonic energy surrounding the Himahima clan could be seen clearly from far away. Clan head, the 100 Demons night parade has attacked. Hearing this, although Himahima Juu was startled, he managed to keep a steady face. Don't panic. If it's just one group of the 100 Demons, with our manpower and so many layers of barriers, handling it won't be a problem. No. The family disciple opposite him shook his head. Clan head, it's not one group. Not just one group. Himahima Juu was stunned for a moment. Immediately after, he heard the answer that made his brows knit into a knot instantly. 3 groups, maybe even more, it might be 4 groups of the 100 Demons. We have been surrounded. Spring days actually break quite early. Normally, by 5 in the morning, the horizon should have started to turn white. But today, it was already 7:30, and the sky was still pitch black, with no sign of brightening at all. This group of yokai had been laying siege to the Himahima clan's main estate since the early morning. Up to now, they had been fighting for a full 7 hours. The only light in the surroundings was the eerie light of the artificial yokai, Kokubo. Under this light, the yokai's wounds healed in the blink of an eye, and their stamina and demonic power were constantly replenished. Trying to kill them or exhaust them was almost impossible. But the 5 great families' barriers, as well as the people, would break, get tired, and die. At the beginning, when Himahima Juu took command, the two sides were fighting back and forth. The 5 great families even held the upper hand for a time. But dragging it out to this point, the situation had completely changed. The 5 great families' advantage had been whittled away bit by bit, and now they had fallen into a disadvantage. Levi stood on high ground, looking down at the battle below. Beside him stood a black-robed devil, the very reinforcements he had asked Rizvim to send. He was also the strongest ultimate-class devil currently under Rizvim's command. Levi, didn't you say there was a strong enemy, which is why you asked Lord Rizvim to send people to help you? The devil asked, his tone filled with disdain. And it turns out to be just this bunch of trash. Levi didn't rush to answer. He paused for a moment before speaking slowly. Grandfather's intention is to find Ophis. In order to avoid any mistakes, I cannot leave any risks. He paused again, his gaze cast into the distance. Besides, if I'm not mistaken, the truly troublesome character will be here soon. Oh. The ultimate class devil looked in the direction of his gaze. Sure enough, in the distance, a figure wearing armor was leading people charging at the very front. Is it him? Levi nodded. That's right. 100 Demons God General Koryu, also known as 100 Demons Koryu, the one who can fight the best among the 5 great families. So that's it. The ultimate class devil also sensed the opponent's strength. He does have some skills. However, he is just a mortal, with only this much capability. He is mine. As for the matter Lord Rizvam entrusted to you. Levi smiled. Rest assured, leave it to me. I won't let grandfather down. The devil glanced down at him condescendingly and charged directly toward Koru's direction. Levi watched him leave, the smile on his face deepening. Graphia, the reinforcements have arrived. I'm going to deal with Himahima Juu. He paused for a moment and continued. That ultimate class devil is yours. It's fine to make him suffer a bit, but I need him alive. Understood. Graphia acknowledged and followed directly after the ultimate class devil. Levi withdrew his gaze and looked toward the 5 great families' main camp. Only the last layer of the barrier remained, and even that was tottering. He stretched his back. All right, it's my turn to take the stage. The heads of the Domon, Kushihashi, and Shinra families had already rushed out to fight. The 4 gods were also all holding the front line. Although they couldn't send out a distress signal now, after 7 hours, Okanoin and the 100 Demons side should have sent people over. Himahima Juu sat alone in the main camp's command room, the image of the battlefield constructed by Inmyoto slowly scrolling before his eyes. He tapped his fingers on the table, calculating the situation to come. Even though the current battle situation was unfavorable to them, and the last layer of the barrier was about to fail, he still didn't feel that his side would lose. Koryu should be arriving soon. Once he arrives with the people from Okanoin, it will be the perfect time to wipe out these evil spirits all at once. He gave a cold snort. At this moment, he suddenly noticed an abnormality on the Inmyoto projected map in front of him. It marked a situation that theoretically should have been impossible. The enemy's red dot was actually only 1, and it appeared right in front of him. Himahima Juu looked up instinctively. He saw a figure carrying a weapon, slowly walking out from the darkness, approaching him step by step. Seeking death. Flames instantly exploded from around him, condensing into a shape resembling wings behind him, and the terrifying high temperature instantly burned away the surrounding darkness. He aimed both hands simultaneously at the figure in front of him. Boom! The violent flames engulfed everything. Himahima Juu gave a cold snort. Although I don't know what kind of madness you've gone into, being able to infiltrate the interior of the barrier has indeed made you too arrogant. Halfway through his sentence, he suddenly discovered that he couldn't make a sound. His vision began to drop. Immediately after, he saw his own headless body kneeling on the ground. And behind him, that devil, whose body was covered in blue light patterns and who wore a pitch-black mask on his face, was staring at him. The truly arrogant person is you. This was the last sentence Himahima Juu heard in his life. Then, this head of the Himahima clan, one of the 5 great families, died just like that. As his corpse fell, Himahima Suzaku stepped on the ground, scorched black by the flames, and walked in from outside the door. The expression on her face was very complex. Ryugi Shiki was leaning against the wall outside the door, eyes closed, saying nothing. Looks like the plan worked. Himahima Suzaku spoke in a tone that was abnormally calm. Levi glanced at her. It hasn't completely worked yet, has it? Himahima Suzaku looked up in confusion, only to see Levi extending his hand toward her. In his palm, a small black snake lay quietly. It's Ophus's snake, Levi said. Take it. Although the former head of the Himahima clan unfortunately died at the hands of the assassins sent by Rizvam, this war was ultimately won under the leadership of the new head of the Himahima clan. Wouldn't you agree, new head? Himahima Suzaku took a deep breath, steadied her nerves, and then took the snake from Levi's hand. The moment the snake's body touched her palm, a surge of overwhelming spiritual power rushed directly into her body, instantly skyrocketing by an unknown magnitude. It was far stronger than her own power had ever been. It was even more terrifying than Wanglong. Immediately after, that night, everyone in the 5 great families saw it. A gigantic firebird soared into the sky, spreading its wings and emitting a cry that resounded across the heavens. The old phoenix burned to ashes, and the young Suzaku spread her full wings, dispelling the surrounding darkness, tearing a path for the 5 great families, and bringing them light. Rizvam sat on his throne, his expression growing increasingly dark. A whole day had passed, and there was not a single piece of news. If something had happened to Levi himself, he wouldn't have cared at all. But the problem was that he had intentionally sent people to keep an eye on him, and yet, once those people left, it was like a stone sinking into the ocean, not even an echo had returned. This made him increasingly irritable. Finally, the subordinate he had sent out escaped back. Lord Rizvam. When that guy left, he was wearing a black cloak with a cold expression. When he returned, he was tattered and in an unbelievably pathetic state. As soon as he entered the door, he wanted to say something. But before he could open his mouth, Rizvam suddenly received a communication spell from Levi. This one was different from the kind he had left behind. Levi had clearly modified the spell. It didn't require him to answer, and the voice poured directly into his ears. Let me calculate the time. That guy should have already run back, right? Levi's tone carried a hint of mockery, making Rizvam feel a wave of displeasure. At this moment, the escaped ultimate class devil finally managed to speak. Levi, you actually betrayed Lord Rizvam and colluded with Searzex. Hearing his trusted subordinate say such things, Rizvam's brow furrowed even tighter. On the other end, Levi laughed. Oh my, isn't this all thanks to grandfather's teachings? Interests come first, after all. At least I am a bit more filial than grandfather. Knowing today is your birthday, I specially prepared a gift for you. Hearing his sarcastic tone, Rizvam snorted coldly. Betrayal. Levi, you should know that the restriction I placed on you cannot be undone, even by Searzex and Ajuka. Your life is in my hands. Do you call this, interests come first? Levi was silent for a moment. Rizvam felt he had touched a sore spot and let out a cold laugh. Rizvam's tone was filled with mockery. I see you've fallen into the same mold as Searzex and Ajuka, led astray by them. You're clearly a devil, yet you insist on learning from the angels. All that talk about heroes, not wanting sacrifices, considering the future of the race, protecting companions. It's all baggage that just causes trouble for yourself. Searzex is stronger than me, but he can't defeat me, that's the reason why. He knows I have no weaknesses, but as long as he is away for too long without setting up proper defenses, I have the opportunity to sneak into the Grimoire territory and slaughter his parents and his sister. If you can't defeat your opponent, kill their family. Whatever they cherish, you destroy. This is what a devil should do, this is what fighting is. Tisk tisk. Levi, you're just like your foolish father and that idiot brother of yours, you're all trash. It's a pity, this will probably be the last lesson I can teach you. Having said that, Rizvam clenched his hand in the air. Goodbye. Before his words could fade, a scream suddenly came from beside him. Ah! The ultimate class devil, who was already in a pathetic state, collapsed to his knees. Blood exploded from within his body, and he fell into a pool of blood, completely losing his breath. Rizvam frowned. This reaction. Do you feel like this is exactly the same as when the restriction you set is triggered? A low, fragmented voice, like a devil's whisper, came through the communication spell. It was Levi's voice. Are you also curious why I didn't die, but your subordinate did? Grandfather, have you received the birthday gift I sent you? He. Ha 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 ha. You. Before Rizvam could finish, Levi cut him off. Don't mention it. Isn't it all thanks to your teachings? Even the principles you just spoke of, I have learned them all, and I can even draw inferences from them. Just as you said, this is what it means to be a devil, right? These words were like a bucket of ice water poured from head to toe. Rizvam understood instantly. That Levi, whom he had always treated as trash and a pawn, was completely different from his father, his brother, Sirzeks, and Ajuka. If anything, this kid was just like him. Not some partner of justice. Not some hero, nor some great existence. He was a scoundrel through and through. At the same time, he was also a true devil. Through the spell, he could feel that pure malice. Unscrupulous, without mercy, and with a clear goal. Pure, direct malice. Hey, Levi, I really didn't expect that among my lineage, the most outstanding descendant would actually be you. Thinking about it calmly, it makes sense. Truly smart people should have understood what kind of person I am from the beginning, and known better how to choose to live more comfortably. You really hid it well. Rizvam said, a smile curling the corner of his mouth. You probably think now that with Sirzeks and Ajuka backing you, I can't do anything to you, which is why you dared to turn against me, right? HMPH. You're still too impatient. At the end of the day, you're still young. He suppressed the rage in his heart, grabbed a newspaper from the underworld lying nearby, and his gaze swept over an advertisement for an amusement park at the bottom, letting out a cold laugh. You might be the same kind of person as me, but the side you're standing on doesn't deserve you. It's a pity, you followed the wrong person. You just wait, Levi. The face you made me lose today, I will make you pay it back tenfold, 100-fold. Want to fight me? You're still far from it. He squeezed the words out through his teeth, then flicked his hand, directly cutting off the communication magic circle that Levi had forcibly established, and completely blocked the channel for the spell's transmission. Having done this, Rizvam immediately sealed off this space hidden in the dimensional rift, cut off all connections with the outside world, and moved to a different location. After all, the waste that escaped back had likely exposed this location, and it would be troublesome if Sirzeks and Ajuka came knocking. Better to endure it for now. As he thought this, he looked again at the amusement park advertisement at the end of the newspaper. Leland Amusement Park, opening the day after tomorrow. Hey, what a coincidence. Rizvam had always been keeping an eye on the various developments in the underworld, and he had seen this news long ago. From investment to opening, it had taken about 5 months to build, starting shortly after he left the underworld. The name had been Leland from the beginning. The location was chosen at the former site of the Nibirius clan. Opening an amusement park in that area should be good for business. The location was good, the foot traffic was sufficient, and the exposure was high enough. This was exactly what Rizvam had picked out, the most ideal amusement park. Levi, if you want to play, then I'll play with you to your heart's content. Right in this amusement park that just happens to also be named Leland, let me properly teach you one last lesson. Levi, if we do this, won't Rizvam run away? Sarah Fall watched the communication magic circle being forcibly interrupted, her brows furrowing slightly, her tone filled with doubt. If Sirzeks rushes over now, he will likely arrive at an empty location. Besides, Rizvam will definitely leave some countermeasures in advance to stall Sirzeks for a while. At this, Levi laughed. This way, he will definitely think his plan is seamless, and next, he will have to hurry and act while Sirzeks is away. After all, in his eyes, my biggest trump card is Sirzeks. Sarah Fall opened her mouth. She actually wanted to say that Rizvam was simply a madman, and there was no way to guess where he would strike. But before she could speak, Levi took the words right out of her mouth. Leland Amusement Park, he will probably choose that place as his point of attack. Sarah Fall was stunned. She couldn't understand at all why Levi was so certain. Levi sneered. Rizvam is a person without fixed patterns. You say he's crazy, and he is indeed crazy, he has this idea today, and it might change tomorrow. But having been treated as invisible in the Lucifer clan since I was a child, I still managed to figure out one or two of his little habits. For example, he has to read the newspapers published in the underworld every day. When he said this, Graphia, who was nearby, took over. That's why the first task Lord Levi gave me when he arrived at the Lucifer territory was to acquire the distribution rights in the underworld for the daily newspaper that Rizvam frequently reads. Yakumo Yukari also spoke up. After I became Lord Levi's servant, I've often passed newspapers to his informants whenever I had the chance. I've done this many times. Listening to the two of them, a trace of disdain appeared on Levi's face. That piece of land for Leland Amusement Park was specifically chosen and built by me after Sirzex allocated the ancestral land of the Nibirius clan to me. The reason I did this is because I know exactly what kind of person that old thing is. If it were him. As soon as this place opens, kids and ordinary devils will come. Once the foot traffic increases, if we occupy this place first, it will be equivalent to grasping the right to speak. Rizvam looked at the group of devils ready for departure before him, smiling exceptionally happily. Capturing ordinary devils, if the number isn't enough, even that trash Sirzex, who wants to be a good guy, can harden his heart, but if we capture a bunch of children and ordinary devils, then he won't be able to. This is Sirzex's biggest weakness. At this, Rizvam snorted. He cannot ignore these children, so he will definitely bow his head to us. But if we demand too much, he won't compromise either. So, this matter is actually very simple. First, take children and ordinary devils as hostages. On the surface, it's a threat, but in secret, it's to stall for time. Sirzex won't be there at that time, but given Ajuka's temperament, he will likely secretly use a communication spell to let Sirzex speak with Rizvam. In that situation, no matter how you think about it, Sirzex will have no choice but to bow his head. Levi stared at the map of the underworld on the table, placing the chess pieces one by one as he spoke. Serafal stared, dumbfounded. Sirzex also needs to be stalled. He must hurry back. Rizvam is taking advantage of this exact point, setting up the board before he arrives. That guy Rizvam has a massive ego. If I give him this gift today, his attention will definitely be entirely on me. In this way. Or rather, as long as he thinks in that direction. The game is won. The target Levi chose was simple, Leland Amusement Park. If he dares to come, he can forget about leaving alive. After saying this all in one breath, Levi leaned back on the sofa. Sigh, this kind of work is really a pain. I'm really not good at using my brain. It's better for me to just take action. What? Serafal stared at him with wide eyes. You're not good at it. She still hadn't wrapped her head around what he had just said. She even felt that Levi was better at this stuff than strategists like the current Satan Asmodeus, Falbium Asmodeus. Graphia and Yakumo Yukari, however, were already used to this sort of thing. So, while Serafal was still dazed, Graphia spoke slowly. Lord Levi, regarding the arrangements at Leland Amusement Park. Levi had already shared most of the plan with them, except for the details inside the amusement park. For the vast majority of things, they didn't bother to ask, trusting Levi was enough. But there were a few small things Graphia still had to clarify. When you fight Rizvam, how do you plan to handle the barrier? Up until now, there hadn't been any barrier that could trap a transcendent. Time stop is useless against a transcendent. Spatial fixation is the same. A transcendent can even tear open the world at will and dive into the dimensional gap. To keep such a guy trapped, you can only use something like the White Dragon Emperor's Divide, a restriction ability at the level of a heavenly dragon, main god, or transcendent, to first weaken the opponent's power before you can trap them. When Graphia asked this question, Levi smiled and shook his head, pulling out a coin. This coin was a reward from a check-in from Yakumo Yukari. It was called the coin of heads and tails. Its function is simple. If our world has a reverse side, Just like the heads and tails of a coin, this thing can switch back and forth. Simply put, Levi's plan is to drag Rizvam directly into the reverse world before making a move. This guy can hide in the dimensional gap. Just let Ophis handle it. As for the rest, even if he escapes to the edge of the universe, Levi will catch up and kill him. I've already prepared the battlefield for myself. I can fight however I want. After Levi said this, Graphia didn't speak again. Seraphal, however, suddenly realized something. Levi, do you mean that since you prepared the plan so early, does that mean you've known where Rizvam was all along? Yeah. Levi nodded and spread his hands, his face full of helplessness. That's why I said in the heavenly realm that his connection to the Beast Emperor 666 is his last trump card for survival. If he didn't have that card, I would have made a move long ago. Just like now Tilda. Himahima Suzaku used to think it was depressing enough that she had bought her elder's coffin half a month before they were about to pass away. It wasn't until Levi called her over and she heard the plan that she realized, her own troubles really didn't count for much. After all, this guy Levi had arranged the execution ground and the graveyard for his grandfather months ago. Right now, she and Ryugi Shiki were standing at the entrance of the amusement park, looking at the cartoon clown pattern, unable to tell whether they wanted to laugh or be serious. The two of them stood there for a long time without moving. When entering, there were clowns in the amusement park making cheerful sounds. Welcome to Leland Amusement Park Tilda. This. If they didn't know what this amusement park was for, they would definitely think the atmosphere was quite happy. But now that they knew the truth, they felt the atmosphere of this place was very strange. Yeah, even those cartoon clowns common in the underworld amusement parks had a mocking tone when they laughed. You two finally arrived. When Levi saw Himahima Suzaku and Ryugi Shiki, he waved them over directly. That was when the two of them realized that quite a few people had been called over today. There were Yukai, Levi's peerage, Azazel and the deputy governor of the fallen angels, Ajuka was there, Seraphal was there, and even Michael and Gabriel had come. Levi stood in the crowd, scanning the people around him. The current Satan Leviathan stood on the left with her confidants, several Satan class members of Levi's peerage lined up, and peak Satan class powerhouses like Graphia and Tiamat had also arrived. The leader of the fallen angels, the Seraph, the current heads of the 5 great families, whose strength had all reached Satan class after swallowing the snake, plus the elite subordinates they brought with them. The Yukai side was even more exaggerated. The highest-ranking great Yukai of Gensokyo were all present. The leader of the Kyoto Yukai, Yusaka, stood at the front. The old Nurarihyon was also there, and all the other top-tier Yukai from the Far East had come. There was also Tannen who came to help. After reincarnating as a devil, he was now a dragon king. Fafnir, whom Azazel called over, was also a dragon king. Finally, there was him, the Transcendent, and Levi himself. A whole bunch of people like this, all squeezed in here. Ajuka frowned and looked at Levi. Seraphal told me about your plan. I judge the feasibility to be fine, but how do you plan to handle the hostage issue? Rizvam wants to capture children and ordinary devils. Ajuka knew very well that the hostage issue had to be handled with caution. Since they already knew Rizvam's plan, neither he nor Sirzex wanted to hand the hostages over to that madman to torment. Hostages. Levi chuckled. Aren't you all the hostages? Ajuka was stunned for a moment, then looked left and right. His gaze swept over everyone present, and a thought suddenly popped into his head. If Rizvam really dared to come, was he here to take hostages, or to surrender? His few subordinates were simply not enough to look at in front of this group of people. He might be able to run himself, but none of the people he brought would be able to leave. The others clearly thought of this too, and everyone's face was filled with confusion. Levi had long expected this. He waved at Graphia. Graphia walked to his side, and Levi raised his hand and patted her shoulder. Under everyone's gaze, Graphia's body began to shrink. Her clothes couldn't hold on and slid down. In the blink of an eye, she turned into a 5 or 6-year-old little girl. The scene was dead silent. Azazel was the first to speak. Levi, you wouldn't have found a kid, swapped Graphia out, and be making fun of us, would you? He had a close relationship with Levi, so he didn't beat around the bush. Before Levi could speak, a wave of magic power erupted directly from little Graphia's body. The oppressive force of a Satan class instantly spread out. The smile on Azazel's face froze. This magic power was genuinely Graphia's aura. Then Graphia withdrew her magic power, becoming ordinary again. Everyone present was staring at her, brows furrowed, eyes almost popping out. But no matter how they looked, they couldn't find a single flaw. It was as if everything that just happened was just an illusion. Transformation technique. A reward Levi got from checking in on Kuno when he was fighting Yukai in Kyoto. Later, it was strengthened once. When Levi was pulling out the holy sword in the heavenly realm, he got a check-in reward from Gabriel. When he first got it, he felt it was strange. This archangel was likely a fake. If she wasn't good at this stuff, how could she throw out such a reward? However, check-in rewards always had all sorts of things, so he didn't bother to care. Moreover, he had just obtained the holy sword at the time, so this kind of accessory was about the same as having or not having it. As a result, now, the strengthened transformation technique had actually unleashed its true capability. Before being strengthened, this technique could at most let Levi transform into a form that even Graphia couldn't see through. But at that time, it could only be considered an illusion, with appearance but no substance. But now it was completely different. This technique had directly become something similar to a conceptual level. A thorough disguise. Ophis couldn't see through it, and Ajuka couldn't either. Rizvam. That goes without saying. How about it, Ajuka? Are the hostages I picked exciting enough? Ajuka was stunned for a few seconds. Immediately after, even he couldn't help but laugh out loud. These hostages. Exciting, very exciting. Hearing the conversation between the two of them, everyone else present also smiled knowingly. This lineup would definitely make Rizvam happy to the point of exploding. This amusement park would definitely make him play until he went crazy. Although no one knew exactly how Levi planned to keep the people there, just this first step of preparation was enough for them to breathe a sigh of relief. Next, Ajuka, Michael, and Azazel, the leaders of the three forces, exchanged glances with each other. Before rushing over, they had brought their most elite subordinates. Simply put, they regarded this invitation as the last battle before the peace between the three forces. The largest scale. The strongest enemy. After all, the target to be dealt with was a transcendent. That thing would slip away if not careful, and its destructive power was terrifyingly high, with danger levels maxed out. Everyone was tensed up. But now, anyway, just follow what Levi said and be an audience member holding popcorn. Anyway, things were already starting to get interesting. Rizvim's speed was terrifyingly fast. The location of this operation was the underworld, and he had brought almost everyone he could to the stage. Right now, he didn't have that set of future Emperor's evil pieces in his hands. On the first day of Lilin Amusement Park's opening, it was crowded with people. Ordinary devils and children packed the entire park, with laughter and screams mixed together. Rizvam stood at a high place, scanned around, and knew what to do. There were enough people, and the timing had arrived. He raised his hand and made a gesture. Do it. The purple sun above the underworld was instantly swallowed by black clouds. Amidst the churning black clouds, Rizvam descended slowly, standing on the top of the highest building in the amusement park, looking down at everything below. Black mist surged out from every corner of the amusement park. His subordinates, at least hundreds, if not thousands, emerged from the mist and rushed directly toward the crowd. Most of them were ordinary devils and children, whose combat power was almost zero. In 10 minutes, the scene was completely under control. Don't cause any deaths. Rizvim's voice was faint, carrying a trace of casual amusement. If we provoke Sirzex and Ajuka too much now, this play won't be interesting. The subordinates nodded, and their movements became a bit more restrained. Rizvim deliberately let a few devils go so they could go and report the news. Sure enough, not long after, Ajuka arrived with a fully armed troop. Leland Amusement Park was surrounded tightly. Ajuka stood at the very front, his face ashen, staring intensely at Rizvim, who stood on the rooftop. Rizvim, what exactly are you trying to do? Rizvim laughed. What am I doing? Naturally, I am teaching that dim-witted junior his final lesson. His tone was airy, as if he were discussing a trivial matter. It is just, this will be the final lesson of his life. Ajuka's expression darkened further. Because he knew that if he did not keep a straight face, he feared he might burst out laughing. Over on Rizvim's side, a high-class devil had grabbed a child and was holding him in midair, putting on a fierce and menacing act. But the child he had grabbed was Azazel. Putting aside the disparity in strength, just looking at the situation itself. A governor of the fallen angels, pretending to be a child, getting captured by the enemy to threaten a Satan class. This is likely the first time in devil history that someone has taken a hostage who turned out to be a lunatic. Ajuka was struggling hard to contain himself. Just then, Rizvim suddenly heard a sound. The sound of a coin being flicked. It was very faint, very crisp. Only he heard it. No one else, not even Ajuka, showed any reaction. Then, the scene before Rizvim began to change. The surrounding scenery remained, but the figures of the devils who had been standing beside him began to blur. Even Ajuka seemed separated by a layer of fog. Immediately after, Ajuka noticed the change in Rizvim's expression, and a faint smile slowly curled at the corner of his lips. It seems the plan has begun. As soon as the words fell, Rizvim saw that the child captured by his subordinate began to change in size. Azazel and Michael were both there. The elites of the three factions had almost all arrived. This was the last scene he saw. Afterward, within his own consciousness, the surroundings became completely empty, there was nothing left. An illusion. Rizvim descended slowly from midair and landed on the floor tiles. He frowned and scanned his surroundings. His sacred gear nullification ability had already been spread out. Yet, the surrounding scene had not changed at all, and the devils had not reappeared. It was basically certain that this was not caused by a sacred gear. Just as he wanted to test something else, a sound of footsteps came from a certain direction. Rizvim turned his head to look and saw Levi. Levi was carrying Yamato in his left hand, had a holy sword strapped to his back, and was wearing a blue coat. His free hand was constantly spinning a small gadget that looked like a camera. At the same time he saw Rizvim also saw him. Then, he casually tossed the camera-like object into the air, a tear opened in space, and Ophis reached out to catch it. The battle is happening here. If I don't let Graphia understand the situation, she will surely worry for nothing. I leave this to you, Ophis. After finishing this, Levi walked up to Rizvim. How about it, is it a surprise? Levi wore a smile on his face. This amusement park was built specifically for you a few months ago. The name is not bad, right, and the newspapers I had people make during that time, written specifically for you, had quite a few things you thought you could use, didn't they? With every word Levi added, Rizvim's expression grew darker. He had originally thought he was the one playing the game, with everything under his control. But now he realized that this Levi, whom he had dismissed as trash and treated as invisible, had actually used his contempt to study him thoroughly from the shadows. However, Rizvim watched as Levi walked up to him. He also saw the unrestrained magical energy fluctuations on the other party, firmly at the peak level of an ultimate class devil. He laughed along. Ah, This scheme of yours, even I have to give you a round of applause. But Levi, sometimes, don't be too confident. The first sentence was still speaking to Levi, but the next second, the phantom of this conversation faded. In its place was Rizvam, holding a magic circle with both hands, having been hiding his presence for the past 5 seconds. Boom! The violent magical energy instantly condensed into a magical cannon. A massive amount of magical energy slammed directly into Levi's face. With only this much ability, you dare to stand before me? Trash! Rizvam roared. However, the magical beam he blasted out was split down the middle by a blade aura. He widened his eyes instinctively. Levi had already shredded his attack head-on and rushed directly before his eyes. Levi had his right hand on the hilt of Yamato and was reverse gripping the holy sword on his back with his left hand. Lowering his center of gravity, his speed instantly exploded to the limit, and his devil trigger was fully activated at this moment. Several afterimages of Levi even flashed before Rizvam's eyes. Immediately after, hundreds of blade and sword marks intertwined into a giant net, covering everything from above. Rizvam's eyes instantly turned pitch black, and the magic circle under his feet expanded at a terrifying speed. As magical energy spread frantically, all the attacks Levi slashed out were forcibly cancelled before hitting. Levi himself was also knocked backward by that surge of magical energy. But just as Rizvam prepared to counterattack, 6 blue light swords suddenly appeared beside Levi. Before he could react, those 6 light swords vanished. Immediately after, sharp pain radiated from 6 parts of his body simultaneously. The summoned swords had already pierced into his body. And every sword struck a vital point precisely. Vibration, freezing, destruction, burning. Multiple attributes took effect simultaneously, frantically eroding his body. Levi watched this scene and let out a light breath. If this were an ordinary Satan class, having been struck in vital points by his sure hit plus penetration combined with summoned swords, and then injected with these magical attributes, they would have been finished long ago. But Rizvam, this transcendent. Levi gripped the sword hilt again. This level is still far from enough. That move just now. In the Leland amusement park of the front-facing world, the battle had completely ended. Or rather, what happened here could not be considered a battle at all. It was purely a one-sided crushing. After it was over, everyone gathered together. Searzex was also sharing the perspective remotely via a spell from Ajuka, and the group stared at the real-time footage from the reverse world on the large screen in the center of the amusement park. Ophis was recording the battle between Levi and Rizvam. When Azazel saw those 6 summoned swords, he raised an eyebrow. I seem to have seen that thing at that old man's place in Norse mythology, but it feels different. It's probably some kind of sure hit ability. Ajuka listened and nodded. It's not just sure hit, the attack power is also ruthless. Otherwise, just hitting him wouldn't be able to hurt Rizvam at all. But the things we can see, Rizvam has likely noticed as well. Using this as a means to gain an advantage is fine, but wanting to win by relying on this is basically hopeless. Michael's tone was calm. And the facts were indeed as he expected. Rizvam knew this very well. This world gathered various mythological systems, so no matter how hidden an ability was, even if one couldn't see through the trump card at a glance, understanding its essence was not difficult at all. So, in the final analysis, this move was simply, sure hit. Fine then. Rizvam's gaze darkened as he saw Levi rushing up once again. At the same time, those summoned swords appeared beside Levi again. He immediately released his magical energy, actively spreading it out. Just at the moment the summoned swords were forming, his magical energy, like a giant hammer condensed from a storm, slammed into them, shattering that pile of swords directly in midair. However, this interception could only block the summoned swords, not Levi himself. But for Rizvam, this was enough. He truly had not expected that after Levi transformed into his devil trigger, his strength would jump directly from an ultimate class devil to a Satan class. He was quite surprised. But even if his sacred gear nullification move was useless against this thing, he had no choice but to accept it. Although he had already consumed quite a bit of magical energy, but now we are clashing head on, Levi. That's right. Rizvim's magical energy swept out and knocked away all the summoned swords. Then, Levi, rushing up while gripping Yamato, met Rizvim head-on, who had long since set his stance. Levi's speed was ridiculously fast. Even Rizvim could sometimes only see a few afterimages and simply could not keep up with his movements completely. However, being able to catch a few afterimages is enough. Rizvim lifted his left hand, and the violent magical energy transformed into a torrent of energy, sweeping directly across everything before his eyes. Sure enough, the previous sword marks appeared again. His attack was torn open, and Levi appeared from within it. One of the phantoms swung a sword mark, tearing through his offensive. And Levi himself had his hand retracted, as if preparing to throw a punch. Hey, what kind of old-fashioned fighting style is this? Seeing this stance from Levi, Rizvim lifted his other hand. A magic circle formed instantly. And on the other side, Levi, wearing the devil arm Beowulf and having been charging up for a long time, finally arrived before him. And then, slash! Countless summoned swords descended from the sky. Rizvim had just noticed these swords when a dozen of them pierced into his body. Some stabbed into his eyes, some inserted into his ears, and others hit his temples and heart. But for a transcendent like Rizvim, such injuries, even if they made him look disheveled, were not fatal at all. Therefore, even at this point, he did not stop. When he raised his hand, magical energy had already gathered at his fingertips. Immediately after, boom. This time, his energy did indeed hit Levi. His eyes were pierced by summoned swords, but he could still perceive everything. He even laughed out loud. He was a transcendent. This level of magical energy was enough to crush a Satan class into dust, so Levi was definitely finished. But just as he was thinking this, a strange feeling suddenly emerged. A very familiar power. That is the old guy's power. The aura of the original Lucifer. Although it wasn't pure enough, it did exist, that is. Regalia. When the attack Rizvim launched slammed into Levi, most of it was nullified by Regalia, and the remainder landed on Levi in his devil trigger state, causing absolutely no pain or harm. Therefore, Levi didn't take his attack seriously at all. He had long since compressed a massive amount of magical energy into his fist, and at this moment, he had fully charged it and smashed it fiercely into Rizvim's chin. This punch had astonishing force. Terrifying magical energy condensed on the fist, and the surrounding space and time began to distort slightly. The reverse world did not tear apart under Ophus's intentional control, but because of the effect of the devil arm Beowulf, the layer of light wrapped around Levi's fist became increasingly blinding after he exerted his strength. Seeing that light, Rizvim immediately mobilized a massive amount of magical energy, defending with all his might. The strength of a transcendent was displayed to the fullest at this moment. His raw strength was stronger than Levi's, and even though Levi was using light and was carrying something like regalia that could immunize against most devil attacks, Rizvim only felt it was a bit troublesome. After all, Liwei's combat strength was undeniable. For Rizvim to break through his defenses was simply impossible. Bang! Rizvim's magical barrier was wiped away directly by the power of fantasy magic, and his transcendent class body was as fragile as paper before the piercing property of the Red Dragon Emperor. Then, that violent power, carrying light that was akin to poison for devils, blasted Rizvim into midair in one go. His head might have even shattered in that single blow. But for those devils who could bear the title of transcendent, the most important thing was magic power, not the body. The body could be regenerated and reconstructed at any time. Only something like the White Dragon Emperor's ability to have magic power was a true threat. Even so, this was a heavy injury. Moreover, He had to consume a large amount of magic power to keep his body from collapsing, and then spend just as much to repair it. This was truly adding insult to injury. Summoned swords smashed down from the sky once again, piercing directly through Rizvim's body. The upward force was suppressed, so he didn't fly too high, just tumbled backward. Rizvim sensed something was wrong and gathered magic power in his hands again. He felt that Li Wei was going to go for the kill now. And Li Wei did indeed grip the hilt of the holy sword, but he didn't rush over to slash. Instead, he lifted it with both hands and threw the holy sword directly. The holy sword erupted with divine radiance, forming a tornado. Rizvim's attention was entirely on Li Wei, so he didn't defend against his back at all. The light exploded directly behind him. Ah! He screamed, his back scorched and torn open. But his reaction wasn't slow. He forcibly pushed the magic power he had originally used to guard against Li Wei to his back, using the impact to propel himself away, avoiding slamming his entire body into the blade of the holy sword. Being able to do this was already the result of him giving it his all. But before he could even catch his breath, Li Wei's voice came from extremely close by. My power shall be absolute. Sword marks covered Rizvim's entire body like a dense spiderweb. He had just dispersed the magic power in his hands and had no means of defense. Those sword marks fell upon him, slash by slash. Ophis locked down the space completely. Li Wei didn't intend to use Yamato's separation ability to cut through space. Instead, he used all that power on Rizvim. Ah! Just moments ago, Rizvim's consciousness had been blurred by the holy light, but this intense pain made him scream out again. His hands were sliced off by a sword, his legs were severed, his torso and head were separated, and his entire body was torn to shreds by the crisscrossing sword marks. Azazel, Ajuka, and Michael, who were watching from the front, were all stunned. Especially Ajuka. He himself was a transcendent, so he understood better than Azazel and Michael what being a transcendent really meant. Even if you are ridiculously strong in one aspect, you don't deserve to be called a transcendent. Because you simply aren't qualified yet. Physique, magic power, technique, strength, all of these must exceed the Satan class level. Only by reaching this level, being so powerful that the individual doesn't seem like a devil race, can one be called a transcendent. Therefore, there had long been such common knowledge in the world. The peak of devils is the Satan class. As for transcendents, those monsters can no longer be considered devils. Rizvim's physical defense was 270 points, and coupled with his vast magic power, logically, he should have been able to withstand any attack. But the reality was right before their eyes. He couldn't stop Li Wei at all. Ajuka saw it clearly from the side. He carefully recalled the battle process just now and found that the most terrifying thing about Li Wei was not his outrageous attack power, but that this person hadn't revealed any flaws from beginning to end. Not a single thing could be called a weakness on him. Li Wei could be immune to light-based attacks and could even manipulate light and holy swords in return. Seraphal had mentioned this when she returned. But seeing it with his own eyes still made Ajuka's heart run cold. Firstly, Li Wei had directly filled in the shortcoming that devils had had since the day they were born. Secondly, his attack power was strong enough to easily break a transcendent's defense, and a casual strike could injure a transcendent. Finally, he could take Rizvim's magic cannon at close range and completely ignore the terrifying power as if it were nothing. Ajuka remembered when the reformist faction devils first emerged. The leader of the reformist faction, who was always hiding, had once said something to Sirzex and him. Now he felt that this sentence should be given to Li Wei. With talent like yours, there's no need to train desperately. Just grow at a normal pace, and you will inevitably become the strongest in the future. No, you will transcend the limits of the devil race. Li Wei stood in front of Rizvim. The ground was covered in blood, and Rizvim's body had already fallen into a pool of blood. But Li Wei knew that this guy wasn't dead yet. What died was Rizvim's physical body. His magic power had reached the transcendent level, and the quantity was so vast that this world simply couldn't naturally contain it. So even if the body was gone, that magic power wouldn't naturally dissipate. This residual magic power would continue to support his soul, allowing the transcendent to live on after the body died. To truly kill a transcendent, one could only use the White Dragon Emperor's ability to have power, or the Red Dragon Emperor's special flames. As long as the opponent's magic power was suppressed to a level that the world could bear, that magic power would naturally dissipate like an ordinary person's. Without magic power to support it, the soul would effectively be dead. The unlucky ones would even be sealed up and turned into sacred gears. Tisk. This part is truly disgusting. Before Li Wei transmigrated, he already felt that this setting in the high school DxD worldview was very frustrating. Truly strong people were basically impossible to kill. Like Tamamo no Mei, Shuden Doji, Tengu, and those evil dragons. Without special abilities like the Red Dragon Emperor's fire or the White Dragon Emperor's having and poison, there was basically no chance of finishing them off completely. Even with just a wisp of soul, they could still come back to life. Even if the soul was torn to shreds, it could be pieced back together like Vritra among the 5 great dragon kings. Afterward, they could find a way to resurrect or pass their power on to their descendants. Even the so-called gods hadn't actually completely dissipated, a corner of their will was still hidden within the true Longinus. Conversely, the original 4 great Satans seemed to have really died completely. However, the vast majority of guys were just sealed. For example, the 3 great yokai locked in the Okanoin, the sealed great ogre Ura, the chained beast emperor, and some evil dragons that Rizvam was supposed to resurrect later. The problem was, the ability to completely kill this kind of existence. Li Wei just happened to have it. When Rizvam had his body, this move couldn't hurt him. But now, he only had magic power and a soul. Li Wei sheathed the holy sword and condensed the power of fantasy into his right palm. In this state, Rizvam was exactly within the range of being erased. Li Wei stepped toward the pool of blood he had turned into. The opponent's soul, wrapped in magic power, floated above the pool of blood. Li Wei was ready to act and erase him from this world completely. At this moment, Rizvam didn't intend to run anymore. Because he understood better than anyone, he couldn't run away. Space had long been tightly locked down. Even he couldn't tear open a rift to escape elsewhere. Coupled with the fact that Li Wei's eyes were locked on him the whole time, even begging for mercy would be a waste of effort. Rizvam knew very well that Li Wei was the same kind of person as him. He wasn't some naive hero, but a genuine devil, a Satan. Since he had made a move on him, he would never stop halfway. So, completely understanding that he had no way out, Rizvam laughed. He wasn't a coward afraid of death. He was a complete madman. In the original story, after he died, he didn't even leave others a chance to seal him, directly awakening the Beast Emperor. Although he didn't have the Beast Emperor as a talisman in his hand right now, he still had other desperate means. Li Wei, you think you've won, perhaps you really have won against me. However, I've told you before, my previous words still hold. The humiliation you've caused me, I will repay you 100-fold, 1,000-fold. Rizvam roared crazily, his voice full of madness. Li Wei walked expressionlessly up to his soul and magic power and slapped his right hand directly onto it. Crack! Just like when the execution platform of the Purple Flame High Priest was destroyed. Only such a light sound reached his ears. Then, the existence named Rizvam, the shadow of the Lucifer clan, Sirzek's greatest enemy, the strongest transcendent born to original Lucifer and the mother of devils Lilith, died. Completely erased by the power of fantasy, not even a wisp of his soul fragments remained. Clang! The sound of a coin being tossed rang out again. The surroundings were desolate. Li Wei couldn't see a single building in his line of sight, and the entire wasteland-like reverse underworld suddenly returned to its original state. It wasn't that the reverse world was repaired. It was that he and Ophis had returned to the normal world. Lord Li Wei, welcome back. Graphia walked over, her voice steady. Li Wei loosened his shoulders. I won, but I still feel like something is missing. I was a step away from breaking through before, and now it's just about half a step. Seeing this expression on him, Graphia rarely showed a smile. Before he could finish speaking, Ajuka received a communication from Sirzex. There wasn't a single ordinary person present, and Ajuka didn't hide it either. As soon as Sirzek's voice came out, everyone's attention drifted over, whether consciously or unconsciously. Then, Ajuka, hurry and mobilize manpower. Since Azazel and Michael are also there, it would be best if you could call them to help. As soon as Sirzek said this, Ajuka, who had been lazy just a moment ago, immediately changed his expression. Sirzek's voice, carrying urgency, sounded again. That world Risebom opened up in the dimensional gap. That world is crashing down toward the underworld. Ajuka's eyes widened. Azazel and Michael, who had been staring this way, also frowned tightly. Especially Azazel. The fallen angel's base was also in the underworld. A world opened up in the dimensional gap, crashing directly into the underworld. If the two worlds collided like that, the entire underworld would probably shatter. After Sirzex hung up the communication, Ajuka took a deep breath and immediately gave the order. Gather everyone above high-class devil, the Satans are no exception. The fully armed elite devil in front of him was about to turn to execute the order, but was stopped by Li Wei. Take this, and by the way, call those people from the old Satan faction over too. The elite devil took the ring Li Wei tossed, nodded, and flew away directly. Seeing this scene, Li Wei glanced at Ajuka. I thought he would ask for your opinion first. Sirzek's grooming you as the next Lucifer is no secret among devils. That's the end of part 8. Part 9 is coming soon.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and support our channel for more stories.